Chapter 120. Infuriated to the point of discarding all rational thoughts. 6. Apparently, you still have not vented all the anger in your heart, girl. Nangong Luyun looked at her while smiling. He saw her expression continued to change, and his eyes were gentle, flirtatious, and compelling. Is it still not enough? Then do you want to try again? Will you stab it in from here? Or there? Or maybe here? Nangong Luyun, stop acting crazy. Hurry up and release my hand. Do you hear me? Su Luo stared at him with a complicated look. If he was not so weak and pale, she would have definitely slapped him like how she did before. Why was he using his own life to pressure her? If it was possible, she really wanted to turn around and leave. To abandon this man who detached any value from his own life. Let him fend for himself, self-destruct through madness, and then perish. But she couldn't, because she had saddled herself with the guilt of causing him to go into recoil of madness in the first place. Do you forgive me now? Nangong Luyun was panting. His handsome countenance was sweating profusely, but he still looked at her seriously. Su Luo glared at him coldly. Her eyes swept across the bloody dagger. The blood color emitted a strange cold light under the sun. Su Luo's heart throbbed in an unexpected coincidence. She roared at him. Forgive. I forgive you. She knew, if she dared to say, I never blamed you, those words, next time. If it wasn't him strangling her, then it would be her forcefully strangling him. Because those two sentences, the meaning contained within was not the same. I never blamed you meant, I never cared about you in the first place, which is why she wouldn't blamed him. This man, in regards to reading people's intent through language, was likely to nitpick her answer down to the tiniest details. Then, that's good. A trace of satisfaction flashed through Nangong Luyun's waning but smiling expression. It seemed as if he was forcefully enduring everything until this moment. He finally relaxed and afterwards immediately collapsed to the ground. Nangong Luyun. Su Luo hastily caught and held on to him while frantically shouting out loud. Cold sweat covered Nangong Luyun's face, who had collapsed into her embrace. His lips were purple and black. His entire body appeared to have been immersed in icy water and was covered in a layer of sweat. Su Luo was clearly able to sense he had already lost consciousness. However, his body still repeatedly shivered from head to toe and remained unable to suppress the repeated trembles. Just now, even though he was in this condition, he had still stubbornly propped himself up to compel her to kill him. Su Luo was not afraid to meet a fiercely cruel person. However, a person who could be so fiercely cruel to such an extent, even on themselves, was a person worth dreading. It's all because of you. If it was not for you, His Highness would never end up this way. When Ling Feng saw Nangong Luyun faint, he ran to his side without delay. While scrambling to snatch Nangong Luyun's body from her, he was also raised his head and loudly bellowed at Su Luo. Su Luo's blood and chi was boiling from being yelled by him. A mouthful of blood almost bursted out. She clenched her teeth and was finally able to swallow the sweet and metallic taste. Coldly responded to Ling Feng. What's the point of yelling at me now? The most important thing is to think of a way to save him. I'm not familiar with this. Now it all depends on you. Ling Feng's pair of eyes were crimson and bloodshot, similar to a trapped ferocious beast. He threw a deadly glare at Su Luo. Hugging Nangong Luyun's body, he got on the dragon-scaled horse. He sat on top of the carriage, raised his horsewhip, and was just about to leave. He thought about it. Still in the end his patience, he shouted towards Su Luo. Time is running out. Quickly, get in the carriage. If he considered only his original desires, he would naturally want to abandon Su Luo. The further he left her, the better. However, Ling Feng was not a fool. He had realized deep down that Su Luo had a special status within Nangong Luyun's heart. That area was a place that even the Jade Lakes Fairy had never touched before. If His Highness was to wake up and not see Su Luo, this evildoer, what terrible things would happen if he went out, once again, to find her. For the time being, Su Luo completely disregarded Ling Feng's nasty attitude. She was only worried about Nangong Luyun. If he met any misfortune because of her, she would blame herself and be mournful for the rest of her life. Therefore, Without another word, Su Luo jumped into the carriage and said to Ling Feng, "Quickly, let's go." Chapter 121. Infuriated to the point of discarding all rational thoughts. 7. It seemed even the dragon-scaled horse had sensed its owner's weakening breath, and it neighed agitatedly. Casting out its hooves, it bolted forward. At that moment, the dragon-scaled horse's running speed was comparable to flying. Within the carriage, Su Luo tightly hugged the unconscious body of Nangong Luyun, which was starting to stiffen. Her heart was filled with extreme regret. If she had not punched him with her fist, would the result have been different? Nangong Luyun, nothing bad must happen to you? A single teardrop silently fell onto and rolled down Nangong Luyun's blood-stained face, leaving behind a clear white streak. In less than 2 hours, the dragon-scaled horse pulled to a stop at the entrance of a lavish manor. Ling Feng hurriedly jumped off the carriage. Having seen the dragon-scaled horse's approach, a steward had already excitedly rushed out from within the manor. The steward was around 50 years old. He had eyes that were both bright and alert, and a physique that was straight and strong. One could tell at a glance that he was a martial artist, and not a weak one at that. He saw Ling Feng, and his expression flashed a trace of excitement. "Has His Highness arrived?" Ling Feng anxiously shouted. "His Highness is injured. Stop tarrying and quickly come help." Obviously, this lavish and ornate manor was for Nangong Luyun's private use. Hearing this, Steward Su was instantly horrified. His Highness Prince Jin was injured? His Highness Prince Jin could actually be injured? With His Highness Prince Jin's level of martial arts proficiency, how could he be injured? Steward Su felt that this was simply too preposterous. However, when he saw Ling Feng hurriedly jump out of the dragon-scaled horse carriage, while carrying the blood-soaked body of Prince Jin, he felt his heart would stop beating. What would happen to His Highness? Who was it? Steward Su's eyes flashed with alarm and anger. Ling Feng bitterly glared at Su Luo but kept his silence. He lengthened his strides to dash into the house instead. Su Luo's body was covered with Nangong Luyun's blood, and thus at the moment, looked a little pitiful. Calmly, she nodded towards Steward Su. "Hurry and get the best doctor to come. His Highness Prince Jin has gone into the recoil of madness." When Steward Su saw Su Luo, his prideful ability to keep calm disappeared. He could not help widening his pair of eyes in shock. All who served by His Highness's side knew that His Highness was extremely fastidious, and that no one was allowed within 1 meter of his whole body, especially women. This dragon-scaled horse carriage, other than Ling Feng who drove it, no one else was allowed to enter. However, when he lifted the carriage curtain earlier, he clearly saw His Highness collapsed in her arms. His Highness had actually allowed this miss to get close to him, to ride in the dragon-scaled horse carriage, which even the Jade Lakes Ferry was not allowed to enter. Immediately, the way Steward Su looked at Su Luo changed. It no longer contained a guarded precaution towards outsiders. His present gaze even held a thread of deferential humility. "Miss, how may I address you?" "Su." Su Luo replied plainly. "Miss Su, sorry to trouble you, but please enter and take care of His Highness. Ling Feng may not be able to give him proper care with his rough manner. This old servant will now go and invite the best apothecary." Steward Su nodded solemnly towards Su Luo before he turned away and left, taking great strides. To suffer recoil of madness during cultivation, a general doctor, no matter how brilliant, could do nothing. He could only seek an apothecary's help in this matter. Within this Nanming prefecture lived an advanced apothecary. Not to mention in the small Nanming prefecture, even within the entire Eastern Ling Empire and on the whole continent, advanced apothecaries were very rare. Steward Su knew that this legendary advanced apothecary was eccentric, arrogant, and temperamental, almost to the point of making people bitterly detest him. Chapter 122. Infuriated to the point of discarding all rational thoughts. 8. Unless one had a heavenly treasure that could move him, such as the precious and rare primeval pill recipes, getting him to act would be difficult, extremely difficult. If His Highness Prince Jin's name was used to accomplish this, no, it would be inappropriate. He would not even dignify to the king's request with an answer, much less entertain His Highness Prince Jin. Not to mention, with so many enemies out there after His Highness Prince Jin's life, if the news of His Highness's injury were to leak out, that would far from being good. If it was in the capital, Prince Jin's manor had countless rare treasures. But here in the Naming Prefecture, the treasures that could be counted were far from sufficient. Steward Su's heart was anxious and apprehensive, yet he could only retrieve the most precious treasures from within the warehouse. He left in a hurry with an escort party towards the apothecary's estate. Su Luo tailed after Ling Feng in the direction he flew with a surprisingly fast speed. When she arrived, she saw 2 rows of uniformed guards outside the room. Every one of them bore a similar expression and movements. Solemn, majestic, their imposing manner was intimidating and emitted a fully oppressive atmosphere. Su Luo was stopped outside the door. Ling Feng hollered out, "Throw her in here." Even though Ling Feng was very worried, he had not completely lost his mind yet. Although he was very unwilling to let Su Luo near his own master, it was already obvious that only with her around would His Highness fight to live. Such a discovery would drive people mad. Accordingly, Ling Feng had become so depressed that he started to pull out his own hair. Su Luo completely was unaware of Ling Feng's inner conflict. When she entered, she discovered that Ling Feng had already placed Nangong Liuyun in bed. On the sickbed, Nangong Liuyun's eyes were tightly closed. His eyes when open were sharp and abstruse, cold and steady, but now they were tightly shut. Despite his vulnerability, his current appearance still gave off a strong enough aura to make people tremble with fear. His red lips were alluring and formed a picturesque face that could grace a painting. Hot, fresh blood dyed his white robe, and the outside of his cheeks, from his neck down, was dotted with bloodstains. The him right now, although frail and pale, still leaked out the same formidable domineering air as before. "You do it." Ling Feng's hands held a piece of embroidered cloth, and with a trace of anger, he tossed it to Su Luo. His Highness Prince Jin was very misophobia. Even though he had followed at His Highness's side for more than 10 years, he still had to maintain a distance of 1 meter from His Highness's body. Just now, when he carried His Highness inside, it was due to a moment of desperation and because he saw no other option. However, this evildoer, Su Luo, was different. His Highness would probably be more than eager to have her get closer to him, right? Ling Feng hatefully thought. Su Luo held the soft, clean towel and slowly walked to Nangong Liuyun's side. Sitting by his bedside, she silently gazed at him. The ever-noble, conceited, and icily cold Highness Prince Jin now appeared to be painfully suffering in a deep abyss. He appeared to be very pitiable, and his current condition could not help but make people's hearts soften. Her cool, jade-like slender fingers brushed away a few strands of hair on his forehead and delicately, using the soft towel, wiped clean, centimeter by centimeter, the blood that covered his skin. That pure white jade-like radiant skin, little by little regained its glittering splendor in the wake of her towel. But he remained unconscious, and his body was like a block of shifting ice, entirely stiff as iron and continuously shivering. As if he was so cold, he could pass away at any moment. Why has the apothecary not come yet? His Highness can't hold on any longer. Ling Feng was so worried that both his eyes became red. He then resolutely spoke to Su Luo. "Take good care of His Highness. I'll go out return quickly." He said what he needed to say, and without waiting for Su Luo's reply, his silhouette had already disappeared from where he was standing. Su Luo secretly reasoned that Ling Feng was an expert, and not just any expert, but one who was second only to Nangong Liuyun. Suddenly, she felt something lock around her hand. Looking down once more, she discovered Nangong Liuyun's bony and smooth hand tightly griped around hers. Chapter 123. Infuriated to the point of discarding all rational thoughts. 9. The large pool of blood on his chest was like an extremely beautiful decoration, gaudy and unpleasant to her eyes. It painfully stung her vision and left traces of moisture upon the rims of her eyes. He tightly gripped Su Luo's right hand. His joints used all its strength to press down. Just a little more, and the strength of the grip could almost cut off her wrist. Painful. It really was painful. Su Luo pursed her lips. It was so agonizing that Su Luo felt as if his grip would tighten until all her veins burst. She lowered her head and looked down. She saw the color of her veins rapidly retreat, leaving the skin blanched white. Nangong Liuyun's grip was so tight that his fingers seemed to have entered her flesh. To use such strength, Su Luo was in so much pain that she was completely numb. However, her mouth was tightly closed, and she dared not speak a word, let alone to risk reminding him to release her hand. Su Luo understood that right now he was in a lot of pain. He was in so much pain that he had fainted, but he continued to suffer in agony. The amount of pain he was currently enduring was greater than hers by thousands, no 10,000 times. And she knew she was the cause this evil that plagued him. How could she cry out and complain about pain in front of him? If it could ease some of her guilt, then she wished the pain would be even more fierce and severe. Therefore, her pure white wrist was almost squeezed until the bones shattered, and her entire body trembled from the agony. However, she remained motionless. Her other hand steadily moved slowly, and little by little it wiped clean the jade-like skin on his face. She wiped away the large amount of cold sweat that were pouring out. Whenever she finished cleaning off the current layer of sweat, another layer would swiftly cover his face. His jaw was tightly clenched, and his lower lip was being bitten until the blood slowly flowed down. A trace of pain crossed Su Luo's heart. Such thin, good-looking lips shaped to perfection. It's such a pity to damage it. Without thinking, Su Luo extended her finger to prop open his jaw. Pain. In a split second, Su Luo's long, shapely eyebrows tensed. Her body, however, was still fixed in place, motionless. Only until this moment was she able to deeply feel how deep was his pain. When Ling Feng entered, this was the exquisite scene that stood frozen in time for him to see. He saw Su Luo's hand that was blanched white from being squeezed, with wrist bones close to shattering, as well as her other hand that was bitten until it was dripping blood. A thread of astonishment flashed through the depths of his eyes, and it was followed by a clear understanding of what had really transpired. Since the first time they met, he had always been harsh, unreasonable, and critical of Su Luo. Chapter 124. To adapt to one's taste. 1. Difficult, very difficult. Apothecaries was sighed. Unless the treasure you gave could move Apothecary Long's heart, otherwise, based on how eccentric and proud Apothecary Long is, he would definitely not personally help to save a life. Even His Majesty the Emperor's royal edict won't work? Su Luo frowned. The position of an apothecary could reach such a height? Yes, even if His Majesty were to send an imperial edict, it still won't be able to invite him. After all, Apothecary Long is only the third advanced apothecaries to appear in the country of Eastern Ling. Apothecaries was stroked his beard, eyes filled with admiration. Since apothecaries were extremely rare, the royal family regarded apothecaries as extremely important. They were even accorded with an unusually high degree of freedom. You could even say that if an apothecary wanted to serve the empire, they could just report their name and they would get a high post with a generous salary. A mountain of gold or silver, beautiful women, and land grants. As long as their demands didn't threaten the stability of the empire, they could simply name their price. It could thus be seen what kind of transcendent status an apothecary had on this continent. Su Luo stood up. She silently glanced at Nangong Luyun and then turned her head to Ling Feng to say, "Looks like I have to personally make a trip to Long Manor. Nangong Luyun will be in your care." Ling Feng's brows tightly knotted. If Steward Su could not invite him over, what kind of method could you have? It's better that I go. He turned around to leave. If polite words can't invite him over, how about being invited by force? Others may fear to offend Long Yin, but he, Ling Feng, was not afraid. Su Luo stopped him. Her expression was calm and collected. Her tone was very firm. "Believe in me. Only I can invite him to come here." Finished speaking, she spoke to Apothecary Zhua. "I still need to further impose on Apothecary Zhua to lead the way. Time is limited. Apothecary Zhua, please." Apothecary Zhua was curious about what kind of method this miss had to be so confident and boast that she could invite Apothecary Long to come. Therefore, he readily agreed. Although Ling Feng did not approve, he also did not block Su Luo. After all, this was also a chance at hope. If Su Luo was unable to invite him to come in the end, then he would stake his life and go, even if he had to kidnap Lung Yin to get him here. Who cared about his shitty advanced apothecary title? Lung Manor was located at a secluded place west of the city. It was close to the southern mountains, and there was no sign of human habitation. The surroundings were quiet, secluded, and refined. Su Luo got out of the horse carriage. When she saw the scene in front of her, she couldn't help but frown slightly. In front of Long Manor's door was a wide open space, but a lot of people now kneeled in that space, like a sea of black. From a rough estimate, there were unexpectedly more than 100 people. What was even more shocking was that even with so many people kneeling on the ground, none of them were making a sound. Each and every one of them was like the sculptures in temples, motionless, without words, like a pile of wood. At this moment, the dark red doors opened with a creak sound. From the door walked out a person in an embroidered robe. At one glance, you could tell he was a fair and clear-skinned middle-aged man that lived like a prince. He had both hands clasped behind his back as he arrogantly, slowly strolled out. He critically scanned the crowd of kneeling people. Whenever he passed in front of a person, the kneeling person would reverently raise up high the tray they were holding with both hands while bowing their heads. The red-painted tray held the precious gift that they brought with them. Some were medicinal herbs that were difficult to find, some were medical books, and some were pearls of jade and crystals. The only thing that was similar was that these stuff, without exception, were not ordinary goods. However, this steward of the Long Manor's gaze was as cold as the manor's namesake, one. He was haughty and picky. He directly walked past 3 rows and still hadn't seen anything he fancied. The places he passed, those people had difficulty covering up the despair in their eyes. Since the Long household steward had no indication of being pleased, this told them that they had no chance. While the Long household steward unhurriedly strolled among these people, he also indifferently sneered. Trash. All of this is trash. How dare all of you bring these garbage here to fool our master? Haha, let me tell all of you, not a chance. Hurry up and scram. 1. The Chinese character for Long is cold in English. So the author is implying that the family's last name of cold is appropriated to describe his manner. Chapter 125. To adapt to one's taste. 2. When he had finished speaking, Steward Long flung his sleeves into the air and went back inside. All of a sudden, a figure rushed from among the crowd of people. This child was around 5 or 6 years old. She had 2 pigtails, and she hung onto Long household steward's leg and wailed. Steward Long, I beg of you. Please, I beg you to give some medicine. My mother is about to be sick. Wah, wah, begging you. The little girl's words seemed to resonate with everyone, and soon an unbroken succession of wailing sounds rose into the air. The sounds of weeping rose and fell in succession. Each was more mournful and miserable than the one before. However, Steward Lung's face remained impassive, as cold as his family name. He shook off the little girl as if discarding a rag, conveniently tossing her aside. He also brushed off his trouser leg as if her touch was filthy. With a cold snort said, You want the medicine you seek? Only if you can provide our master with some treasure. You think he'll treat a patient and make medicine for free? Dream on. When he finished speaking, he coldly flung his sleeves to the side and left. Su Luo's eyebrows wrinkled. So having such a master as this Long character would give rise to such a servant. This Steward Long's words, actions, and mannerisms were too arrogant. Then Apothecary Long would probably also be extremely troublesome to deal with. However, even if you're an advanced apothecary, so what? Don't tell me that you could be better than the legendary Elder Zihua? His elder spent a lifetime of his own heart's blood to write obscure pill recipes. The book was now in her hands. Furthermore, she also had that world-famous Zihua's medicinal cauldron. How could Apothecary Long have something of equal value? Su Luo raised an eyebrow to hint at Apothecary Zhua. A wry smile flashed through Apothecary's eyes. Apothecaries also had a ridged ranks among themselves. He, as an intermediate apothecary, waved his status about in front of others. However, in front of an advanced apothecary, he could only be accommodating. And as everyone knows, this Steward Long had accompanied Apothecary Long since childhood till now. They were very close, and while Apothecary Long was wholeheartedly immersed in the study of medicine, he would leave everything else in the care of Steward Long. Therefore, it was always Steward Long being arrogant in front of others, and nobody dared to be arrogant in front of him. Even take him Apothecary Zwa as an example. When meeting Steward Long, he also could not straighten his spine. Apothecaries will put on a smile, called out to Steward Long, who was just about to go back in. Steward Long turned his head and saw Apothecary Zwa. He frowned slightly. His face had no sign of respect. Apothecary Zwa, why did you come again? Our master have no time to instructed you in those hideous messy recipes of yours. When he was done with his lecture, Steward Long didn't even pause before walking into the doors, indicating to the servants that they should close it after him. The corner of Su Luo's mouth rose into a taunting sneer. You think that an advanced apothecary could be that extraordinary? A simple steward from your household could be so rude to an intermediate apothecary? Would even dare to close the doors in front of his face? How could he pay so little respect to his counterpart? Glancing again at Apothecary Zwa, she only saw him stroke his own beard. There was no sadness nor joy on his face, as if he had already anticipated the scenarios in front of him. He was not even a little mad by Steward Lung's manner. As if accustomed to such a scenario, it was easy to see Yama the king of hell, but little demons were hard to deal with. No wonder. It's not surprising that even Steward Su couldn't request Apothecary Long to come. Su Luo coldly smiled, one hand preventing the doors from closing. Her voice firmly stated, "Wait a minute." Unexpectedly, there were actually someone reckless enough to block the door? Steward Lung thought this was inconceivable, and he revealed a face that had a pointed mouth and monkey cheeks. His pair of shrewd and haughty eyes were somber and cold while he opened them to stare at Su Luo. He arrogantly raised his chin and cast sideway glances at Su Luo. From where did this silly little girl run out of? Don't want to live anymore? Such a vulgar and rude steward. However, even though he was so capricious and mule-headed, there were still countless number of people kneeling and begging him to accept the gift their family carefully bought and selected using the entire family fortune. This fact again proved to Su Luo that on the continent, the occupation of an apothecary was case for how great a reverence. Chapter 126. To adapt to one's taste. 3. Su Luo lifted her eyebrows with a smile that was not a smile. May I ask, is Steward Su in? Steward Su? A complicated expression flashed across Steward Lung's face. Steward Su's identity was mysterious and was not someone he could casually offend. He stared at Su Luo, turned around, then walked away, but he still left behind a single sentence. Let them in. Even though he was merely a steward, he was actually arrogant to this extent. Su Luo shook her head. She would not bother with this type of person. However, if he committed such offense within her hands, then he better beseech good fortune for himself. With a servant leading the way, Su Luo was very quickly reunited with Steward Su. Although Steward Su did not experience that kind of difficult situation of kneeling outside the doors, he was not much better off. Steward Long had placed Steward Su in room located in a side wing of the manor. A young maid was standing on the side waiting for orders. If hungry, there were pastries on the table. If thirsty, there was tea that was neither hot nor cold, fulfilling the basic requirements mandated by etiquette. However, he still wouldn't let Steward Su meet with Apothecary Long. Steward Su's entire face was full of anxiety. We can endure it, but Master can't. This won't do. I must personally look for Apothecary Long. I don't believe that based on Master's prestige, that he, Lung Yin, would dare to utter the word no. Although this manor was the Tiger Wolf Regiment's secret base, in order to save His Highness, this kind of risk was worth taking. Su Luo frowned. Was he preparing to inform Apothecary Long of Nangong Liuyun's identity? He could only see Su Luo blocking his path. Lowering her voice, she said, The matter has not reached such an extent. How about this? Let me give it a try. Along the way, Su Luo had observed and heard everything. She already had a good grasp of Long Yao's temperament. She merely lifted her hands to summon the servant to come, and softly instructed, "Bring me brush, paper, and inkstone." Although the servant was puzzled, she nevertheless brought all the items Su Luo asked for. Sitting in front of the table, Su Luo's hand dipped the brush with ink. It seemed as if she was deep in thought, but in actuality, her spirit was already in her space. She remembered that when she was in the cave, in addition to picking up Elder Zihua's obscure pill recipes, there were also another dozen yellow pages of short notes, with densely packed symbols and words. At that time, Su Luo's was in an urgent situation, and thus had no time to carefully examine it, only guessing that it could be primeval pill recipes. A moment ago, she heard apothecaries would say that you could only move Apothecary Long Yin if you could give him primeval pill recipes. Therefore, Su Luo immediately thought of that stack of yellow papers left in the corner of her space. Su Luo picked it up and carefully flipped through it. Sure enough, every sheet of paper was a pill recipe. Also, it was clearly written on top of every sheet the words primeval pill recipes. Although Su Luo had never seen what other primeval pill recipes looked like, but Elder Zihua's reputation was nevertheless a trustworthy guarantee. Anything that Elder Zihua viewed as valuable enough to be put together with his obscure pill recipes could absolutely not be a fake. Su Luo randomly pulled one out, looked at it, and found that it was a recipe for Rebirth of Flesh Pill. Rebirth of Flesh Pill, as the name implied, was the idea of regenerating new flesh. If someone had their hand or foot cut off, with the Rebirth of Flesh Pill, it would be possible to regrow the limbs as before. This sheet of primeval pill recipes had been lost from the continent for a long time. Nobody would have predicted that it would once again appear in Su Luo's hands. Su Luo closely studied this sheet of primeval pill recipe. Not only were the required ingredients listed in detail, but it also successively listed every step in the procedure, every detail, and any possible problems that could come up, as well as the solutions to those problems. All of it had been painstakingly clearly recorded. Moreover, to refine this rebirth of flesh pill required the services of an advanced apothecary or higher. Su Luo was currently very far from an advanced apothecary, and it would require her to walk a long road to get there. Therefore, she did not care about this pill recipe. Naturally, if this sheet of pill recipe was still unable to move Apothecary Long, then Su Luo would consider offering him the Zihua medicinal cauldron. After all, with regards to her thoughts, the Zihua medicinal cauldron was merely a dead object, while Nangong Luyun was a responsibility that she could not shift to anyone else. Although Su Luo knew that the primeval pill recipe was very precious, but the facts afterwards proved that she had still excessively underestimated its worth. Chapter 127. To adapt to one's taste. 4. Su Luo decided on this rebirth of flesh pill recipe. After she memorized the words, she withdrew from her space and returned to reality. Because only her spirit went in, even if the task was accomplished in front of everyone, nobody would be able to see any flaw among her actions to be suspicious of. Su Luo's hand grasped the brush and, with a focused expression, she effortlessly started to write. Once she wrote about 1/3 of the recipe, the corner of her eyes perked up and her lips formed a devious and sly smile. She stopped writing and picked up the paper that could move the heart of Apothecary Long. She blew on the paper to dry the ink marks left by the brush. She quickly blow-dried the ink marks. Su Luo called to a servant that was passing by with a look that screamed, "Don't question my order," and said, "Deliver this to your master Apothecary Long." The servant frowned. Ordinarily, there inevitably would be guests who want to see Apothecary Long. They would secretly pass their business card through the servants to deliver to Apothecary Long. However, according to his knowledge, none of these people ever succeeded. Furthermore, they had to do it shouldering a huge risk. Therefore, that servant, without a second thought, refused. However, Su Luo only gave an enigmatic smile and said, "Don't refuse so quickly, don't you know? Your chance to achieve meteoric success of a lifetime is certainly dependent on what's written on this paper." After she finished speaking, Su Luo immediately stuffed a heavy silver nugget in the servant's sleeves. Placing the icing on cakes, regardless of it being modern or ancient times, would always be applicable. The servant was also very bold. He didn't have to think very long before nodding his head. He securely folded his sleeves together and quickly left. Watching his back as he left, Su Luo's smile harbored some malicious intentions. In the midst of this encounter, Steward Su had a puzzled and unconvinced expression while watching Su Luo. Only now did he doubtfully inquire, "Miss Su, you have such certainty of the outcome? What exactly was written on that piece of paper?" Steward Su was very intrigued. Su Luo lifted the teacup while showing no signs of nerves. She took a sip of tea. After putting the cup down, her eyelids dropped slightly while her mouth curved into a smile. "It's not me with the assurance, rather that sheet with the pill recipe is determined. Does Steward Su know what the most precious treasure is to Apothecary Long?" Steward Su earnestly said, "This is not difficult to guess. It definitely is primeval pill recipes." With regards to apothecaries, all of them had a strong longing for primeval pill recipes. However, primeval pill recipes had already been lost on the continent. Even the parts that were not lost was hidden within the control of large and influential families. It certainly would not exist within the hands of ordinary apothecaries. Su Luo pursed her lips and smiled. Her smile was profoundly mysterious. Just when Steward Su was hesitating on what to say, suddenly the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside. Following that, the door to the room was urgently pushed open. The person that came was none other than Steward Long, who had previously glanced at Su Luo with dislike. Only gloom could be seen on his grumpy face. Those arrogant and critical eyes swept Su Luo a quick glance, while haughtily asked her, "Was it you who delivered a slip of paper to our master?" Su Luo's gaze was unperturbed. Her snow-white skin gave off an icy and distant impression. She raised an eyebrow at him, not denying nor admitting anything. Steward Long coldly smiled and sneered. "Didn't expect that you, such a girl, would have such a scheme planned. Let me tell you, you are very lucky, for our master had agreed to see you. Now come with me." Steward Long's attitude towards Su Luo was full of disdain and even seemed to hold her in contempt. Now his condescending manner was like a noble giving charity to Su Luo, who happened to be poor. Although Steward Su was furious at Steward Long's attitude, after hearing that Apothecary Long had agreed to see Su Luo, the corner of his eyes and eyebrows crinkled into a joyful expression. This means it was entirely possible that Apothecary Long could potentially personally act to save a life. However, Su Luo's behavior made his eyes pop open. Su Luo's face remained calm. Her icy glass-like beautiful eyes indifferently glanced at Steward Long. She turned towards Steward Su and serenely said, "We have been here for quite some time and don't know how the sick person is doing in our family. Let's go back home and take a look first." Since the haughty and arrogant Steward Long could personally invite her, then it was enough proof that rebirth of flesh pill recipe had already fallen into Apothecary Long's hands. Since that half a page of only a third of primeval pill recipe had already fallen into Apothecary Long's hands. With Apothecary Long's gaze, why should she worry that the other side wouldn't know what it was? Currently, as the seller at the marketplace, she, Su Luo, was the real boss. No matter how rude and unreasonable Apothecary Long was, what could he possibly do to her? He would definitely still come and beseech her. Su Luo's mouth turned up into a cold and cruel smile. She was looking forward to the raging tempest that Steward Long was about to encounter. Speaking of Steward Long, who was rejected by Su Luo, afterwards, he had taken large strides towards Apothecary Long's refining room. However, before he could even knock on the door to ask permission to enter, those eternally closed doors abruptly opened. At the door was an impatient and deeply worried face. This was a 40 to 50 years old middle-aged man. He had a scrawny figure, and his hair and eyebrows were a complete mess. He had a manner that showed he didn't care about his appearance. The white robe on his body had stains all over it. He looked somewhat disheveled and unkempt. Before waiting for Apothecary Long to speak, Steward Long had already started to complain. "Master, that loathsome girl doesn't know what's good for her. This servant, under your orders, went to invite her, but who would have thought that she would unexpectedly stand up, turn, and leave? She was beyond hateful. Apothecary Long's eyes suddenly became severe. He grabbed Steward Long by the collar, while grinding his teeth, asked, "What did you say?" Steward Long thought Apothecary Long was infuriated because his pride had been provoked. He was overflowing with joy, which increased his courage to make up something more sinister, even though initially there was nothing to complain about. That loathsome girl also said. She said that there was nothing amazing about you. Not wanting to meet is fine, but she never placed you in her eyes as being worthy of respect. Chapter 129. To adapt to one's taste. 6. Truly hateful. Apothecary Long cursed loudly. Steward Long's heart was overjoyed, however. Before his smile could reach his eyes, he was thrown to the ground by Apothecary Long, who then harshly scolded, "It must be you, you repulsive servant, who arrogantly and rudely slighted her. Humph! If that mist disappears, see how I will fix you." Even though he had finished speaking, Apothecary Long's fury had not subsided. Thus he kicked Steward Long's face with his foot. He immediately rushed out in his dirty and stained work clothes. Steward Long held his head that was dizzy and confused from being kicked. He was so depressed that he was about to go insane. Up to now, he still wasn't clear why such a small piece of paper would have such great charm. It actually made his master immediately run out, abandoning the medicinal pill which he had been working on for 79 days, without a thought. Since Steward Long was able to keep his position for many years, he could not be a complete idiot. He crawled up and staggered along, chasing after Apothecary Long's silhouette to the manor's gate. Apothecary Long dashed to the doorway and saw a sea of people dressed in black in front of the gate. However, he didn't know who among them was the mist that had written the primeval pill recipe. As for the dense mass of people in front of the gate who hadn't ever met Apothecary Long, they thus were unable to recognize that the dirty, unkempt old man in front of them was the one they had been crying and begging to meet. Exactly at this time, Steward Long also came out, taking large strides towards Su Luo. His expression had completely changed. He was no longer arrogant, rather, he now had a fawning manner. He flatteringly smiled and stood in front of Su Luo, blocking her path. "This miss, please wait. My master has personally come. Look there." Su Luo serenely shot him a quick glance and turned to the direction he was looking at. Rebirth of Flesh Pill Recipe. Apothecary Long's face had an excited and moved expression as he opened his mouth to inquire. Su Luo only smiled and handed him another piece of paper. Su Luo had already divided the Rebirth of Flesh Pill Recipe into 3 parts. The first part had already been given to Apothecary Long. Now, she handed over the second part. Su Luo calmly watched Apothecary Long. She didn't believe that this wouldn't entice him. Sure enough, as Su Luo had expected, Long Yin, this person, was a pure medicine fanatic. He had characteristics similar to an artist. He didn't care about his appearance, nor could he be bothered with trifles. His entire body and mind was engrossed in the occupation of refining medicine. Because of this, he was willing to struggle for a lifetime. Everything else in his eyes were total. "I want to invite Apothecary Long to save a person. I don't know if Apothecary Long will come." Su Lu faintly smiled when she saw Apothecary Long burying his entire face in that piece of paper. "What about the last part of the recipe?" Apothecary Long had an excited expression that was hard to conceal. "If you can cure the person, then naturally I will offer this recipe with both hands." Su Luo smiled while watching him. "However, if Apothecary Long isn't certain of your ability to cure him, then just pretend that I never said these words." Finished speaking, Su Luo turned and started to walk away. "Fine. This old man will go with you to save the person." Apothecary Long was strung along by the 2/3 of that primeval pill recipe until his heart itched terribly. He was itching to get the complete recipe and to thoroughly study it for 7 days and nights. Apothecary Long is indeed a person who knows what's what. Unlike some people, ha, ha. Su Luo glared at Steward Long with a smile that was not a smile. Now, A distinct footprint could be seen on Steward Long's face, clearly indicating that he had been stepped on by someone. Apothecary Long coldly glared at Steward Long. "Once I return, I'll take care of you." When he was done speaking, he took the initiative to climb up into the horse carriage. He incessantly urged Su Luo, "Hurry, quickly get on. What are you waiting for?" Obviously, Su Luo's 2/3 of the primeval pill recipe had succeeded in inciting his interest, to the point that he was pulling his ears and scratching his cheeks. He wished that he could promptly cure this sick person and get the complete pill recipe. "Nangong Luyun, wait for me. I will definitely have someone cure you." Su Luo secretly clenched her hands into fists. Chapter 130. Wearing iron shoes could break what you're searching for. 1. On the horse carriage, Apothecary Long continuously questioned Su Luo and tried to get more information about the primeval pill recipe. But Su Luo was always evasive about that subject. How could Apothecary Long, who spent years refining medicine, be her opponent? His queries could only end in defeat. The carriage's speed was very fast. After about an hour, they had returned to Nangong Liuyun's manor. When Ling Feng saw that Su Luo actually invited Apothecary Long over, his eyes flashed with surprise. But he quickly recovered. He grabbed and then pulled Apothecary Long over to where Nangong Luyun was, anxiously saying, "Quickly, take a look at our master." Apothecary Long was just about to blow up in anger, but Su Luo merely shook that thin, yellow piece of paper. Afterwards his eyes began to shine, and he instantly suppressed his darkening mood. Holding their breath and attentively watching him take Nangong Liuyun's pulse. After about half an hour, Apothecary Long finally opened his eyes. From the very beginning, Su Luo was focused on the apothecary's face so as not to miss a single reaction or expression. When she saw him opening his eyes, Su Luo stepped forward a few steps. "Apothecary Long, how is it? Is it serious?" Apothecary Long's eyebrows knit together. From his face emerged a dignified expression. He waited a long time before glancing in Su Luo's eyes. His 5 visceras and 6 internal organs all shifted. The visceras are bleeding profusely. There are disorders throughout the whole body, and the meridians asphyxiated, unable to be moved. Wanting to go up, but unable to come back down. Wanting to go down, yet not being able to. "So you tell me, don't you think it's serious?" To think it was this serious. Su Luo's facial expression remained the same, but in her heart was a hint of helplessness. Apothecary Long and Ling Feng's words from before corroborated each other, seamlessly. Before, the words Ling Feng spoke were all true. Nangong Luyun for her really had forcefully stopped the recuperating process, and even suppressed promotion to next rank, making an already serious set of injuries on his body even worse. But on top of that, she had even given him such a harsh blow on his weak body, which made it worse and resulted in his current situation. Su Luo clenched her fist tightly, while at the same time looking dignified and not blinking for an instant. She stared at Apothecary Long. "Tell me, how can he be cured?" Apothecary Long thought for a long time before saying slowly, "Curing him will be difficult, very difficult." "Tell me," Su Luo and Ling Feng said in unison. Only, to make Apothecary Long say it is very difficult, these words meant. Su Luo and Ling Feng were both very nervous. Exactly how difficult would it reach? Apothecary Long rubbed his smooth chin, pondering for a while, before responding. "We need crystal stones, a lot of green-ranked crystal stones. Of course, if it was higher than green-ranked it would be even better. Within 3 days, can you guys do it? Green-ranked crystal stone? Or higher-ranked?" Su Luo still had not fully processed those words, before Ling Feng shouted out loud in surprise. "Yes, they must be at least green-ranked crystal rocks. Otherwise it will be difficult to unblock the blood vessels. And if not, then even cured, His Highness Prince Jean will remain at 6th rank, even many years later. No matter how hard he tries, his cultivation won't advance an inch." Apothecary Long's expression was frosty, stressing each syllable. When he was feeling the person's pulse, he found that his strength was at 6th rank, and after a little thought, it was obvious. Such a young person in the entire empire that had entered the 6th rank and was almost at the 7th rank could only be His Highness Prince Jean. After discovering this fact, no matter how calm Apothecary Long appeared, he could not help but be a little nervous. His Highness Prince Jean was the Empire's hope. If he doesn't give treated, then it ends there. If his treatment leads to an incomplete recovery, then there would be big trouble. Ling Feng's eyebrows knitted together. He anxiously paced around in the room. Where can we find some green-ranked crystal stone? Also, we even need a lot of it. Chapter 131. Wearing iron shoes could break what you're searching for, too. It really is difficult. Apothecary Long frowned. Su Luo was completely mystified and was in a perplexed state. She quietly walked to the side and asked Steward Su, "What are green-ranked crystal stones?" There were actually people who had never heard of green-ranked crystal stones. Steward Su was stunned, and with an astonished expression, looked at Su Luo. "What's wrong? Is not knowing so strange?" Steward Su first nodded his head, then shook his head. Afterwards, he quietly coughed before answering Su Luo. As everyone knows, if you want to quickly promote your cultivation, there are two ways. One way is to focus and concentrate on practicing. The other way is to absorb the spirit force from a crystal stone. Also, people who follow the first path will definitely not have access to crystal stones, so they can only depend on themselves and practice. It can be said that crystal stones are extremely important to people who practice cultivation. There was actually such a thing? Su Luo frowned without a word. No wonder, before, she was the rumored good-for-nothing, so naturally she would know nothing about practicing cultivation. Steward Su continued to say, "It's said that crystal stones are also divided into 7 types based on their characteristics. It follows closely with the spirit strength system and is divided into red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple, altogether 7 types. However, there are very few crystal stones on this continent. Moreover, the most abundant are the 3 types, red, orange, and yellow. There are very few green-ranked crystal stones. As for the 3 types after that, cyan, blue, and purple, they are even rarer. Therefore, wanting to find green-ranked crystal stones within such a short period of time, how could it not be an extremely difficult matter? With the imperial family's strength, there ought to be some in the great inner storehouse for materials. However, this place is a great distance away from the imperial capital. Even if you were to ride on the dragon-scaled horse, there still won't be enough time." Steward Su was so anxious that he was pacing around in circles in the room. Su Luo was also worried and anxious. What crystal stone? In the end, what kind of stuff was it? Let alone asking her to search, she had never even seen it before. Ling Feng suddenly stood up and directly ran out, leaving behind only one sentence. "I'll go search." Ling Feng took Prince Jin's writ plate, 1, to the garrison within the city. He turned the warehouse there upside down, almost making the provincial governor suffer an anxiety attack. Even then, he was only able to collect 3 green-ranked crystal stones. There were a lot of red, orange, and yellow crystal stones, but these were only treasures to ordinary people. Whereas to Nangong Luyun, as a 6th-ranked martial artist, these crystal stones were already useless. Ling Feng immediately ran to the mercenary union and issued a task to collect green-ranked crystal stones. 1 green-ranked crystal stone could be exchanged for 100,000 gold coins. This exchange ratio was extremely high. Therefore, the entire city became lively from excitement. Countless people began to transmit this information. Finally, Ling Feng escorted a carriage of stones and returned to the manor. When Su Luo came out, she coincidentally saw Ling Feng, carrying a basket full of rocks that weighed 2,000 kilograms, hurriedly walking into the courtyard. "Quickly, everyone get a basket of source stones. If anyone can cut out a green-ranked crystal stone, the reward is 500 kilograms of gold," Ling Feng heroically said. Once the order was spoken, suddenly, all the subordinates within the manor were filled with passion. People, because of wealth, could receive heaven's punishment and get wiped out from the earth. What's more, this wealth could be gained in an upright and proper manner. These are the stones? When Su Luo's gaze landed on these stones, she couldn't help but be somewhat distracted. Why did she feel that these dense mass of stones were somehow familiar looking, as if she had seen it before in some place? These are the source stones for crystal stones. Ling Feng lowered his voice to explain. Source stones are very strange. No matter how strong the martial artist, they still cannot see into the stone at a glance. Within these source stones, some only contain regular rocks, while other, once cut, would reveal red, orange, even yellow and green crystal stones. Without cutting into the source stones, nobody can tell. Su Luo fixed her gaze on these dense mass of stones, and a light flashed in her mind. These are the source stones for the crystal stones? 1. A writ plate from the royal family is usually a gold, handheld plate that has words carved on it. People holding one from the royal family basically identifies them and their power. The plate given by the emperor himself represents his words, so everyone would kneel and obey when they see it. Chapter 132. Wearing iron shoes could break what you're searching for. 3. Yes. All of it came from the nearby specific crystal stone mining sites, and I picked up only the ones with most potential. But to cut out a green-ranked crystal stone is still very hard. Ling Feng's forehead was wrinkled since the beginning. His entire attention was focused on the scene of a crowd of people cutting stone. His gaze was like an eagle's, unblinkingly watching. However, according to Ling Feng and Apothecary Long's words, green-ranked crystal stones were really rare. Even if over 10,000 orange crystal stones were cut out, you still may not find a single green-colored crystal stone. Although this bunch of source stones were all of the best quality with the highest potential, however, after an afternoon of cutting, a total of 500 red-colored crystal stones, 100 orange-colored crystal stones, and 5 yellow crystal stones were cut out. As for green-ranked crystal stones, not even a shadow of them was seen. After seeing the outcome, Ling Feng's expression was very ugly. Go bring back another batch of stones. I don't believe that I can't even cut out a single green-colored crystal stone. Ling Feng loudly commanded. He was so anxious that his entire palm was sweating. His heart was clearly worried. He was full of fear and dread. Su Luo asked Apothecary Long. In the end, how many green-colored crystal stones will be enough? Shouldn't you at least give a range? After all, Apothecary Long thought about it and said, the more the better, however, at the very least, 50 green-colored crystal stones. 50? Su Luo was depressed. Ling Feng had flipped the entire city upside down and had found 3 green-colored crystal stones. Apothecary Long opened his mouth and immediately asked for 50. Wasn't the difficulty too extreme? Apothecary Long answered. In fact, it doesn't necessarily require green-colored crystal stones. If there were cyan-colored crystal stones, then 10 is enough. For blue-colored crystal stones, only 2 will be enough. If there is a purple-colored crystal stone, not to mention one, just a little piece will contain enough spirit strength. Su Luo became despondent. Green-colored crystal stones were already hard to come by, not to mention the rarity of finding cyan, blue, and purple-colored crystal stones on the entire continent. This was impossible. She saw Ling Feng running over to cut stones, and Su Luo's mind lit up. How could she have forgotten? There were more than 10 dark-colored mass of source stones in her space. At that time in Elder Zihua's cave, she had nearly abandoned them, but she swept them up when she found that they could expand her space. Su Luo found a secluded place, and with a thought, her spirit entered her space. The space was a little crowded, but in that crowded space, what did Su Luo see? She unexpectedly saw little Meng Meng, her contracted spirit pet, which was originally a dragon, but had his body changed into a puppy. He used a human-like manner to sit on the floor with legs crossed, in front of a pile of source stones the size of a small mountain. But the him right now was unexpectedly cupping a source stone with both hands. Su Luo thought her eyes were seeing things, so she rubbed her eyes. But the scene in front of her eyes did not change. Her cute and adorable to the point of making people burst, little spirit pet, like peeling a banana, was, from top to bottom, tearing strips off from the source stone. Yes, even if it was a master like Ling Feng, he would still need specialized tools to cut the source stone, because source stones were unusually hard. Even a master would have a difficult time destroying the stone. However, her adorable little Ming Ming could peel it like a banana or an orange, petal by petal, pulling it apart. Afterwards, he would stuff the peeled crystal stone into his own mouth, chewing with crunch, crunch sounds as if it was very delicious. Wait, what did she just see? Su Luo only felt a flash of green pass by her eyes. This familiar green color was something she had only recently seen. This was definitely not real. Ling Feng had turned the city upside down looking for green-colored crystal stones, yet the result was that her little spirit pet would swallow the green-colored crystal stone as if they were snacks. Unexpectedly, how could he just casually peel out a green-colored crystal stone? Su Luo suddenly had the feeling that she was facing the wind, causing her cheeks to stream with tears. This luck stuff was too fucking important. This must be the characteristics of a person. Su Luo rushed over with one hand. She picked up her little spirit pet. Her smile was sinister and sly. Looting? Huh. If you value your life, immediately spit out the stuff you just swallowed. The adorable little dragon, with his wet, wretched large eyes, looked at Su Luo. His two paws desperately covered his little mouth. No matter what, he wouldn't relent and open his mouth. Chapter 133. To have come about with no effort. 1. Looking at those eyes, even Su Luo's heart softened. Okay, that piece can just be your payment, but for the rest of these, you are not allowed to eat them on the sly. Su Luo looked down at the scattered pile of source stone waste products, and her heart felt a dull ache of pain. She directly knocked on the adorable little dragon's head. You spendthrift. Those weren't melon seeds or peas, but green rank crystal stones, okay? Ling Feng had announced that one could be traded for 100,000 gold coins. The adorable little dragon was completely oblivious as to why his master had a painful expression as he chewed on his gourmet food with crunch, crunch sounds. He was bouncing up and down, looking very cheerful. Su Luo picked him up and placed him into her arms. Then, she made him sit cross-legged in front of her. Looking at the pile of stones in front of her, Su Luo wanted to try her luck. Therefore, she selected carefully and chose a stone to give to the adorable little dragon. This baby's manual labor skills was much faster than the tools used for cutting. Not utilizing free labor was such a waste of resources, and it was also a shame. The adorable little dragon acted as free labor on his own initiative. He received that piece of melon-sized stone, and suddenly, he turned his head, using those pair of large eyes, which were clear as water, to look at Su Luo. It was as if he was a bit confused on why Su Luo would choose this piece of stone. Su Luo rubbed his forehead, urging him. This piece will certainly be able to produce a green-ranked crystal stone. Okay, stop dawdling. Just like how you peel oranges, open it, it will be fine. Okay. The adorable little dragon was still a little puzzled, but with his master's command, he firmly carried out the order. Su Luo sucked in a breath, her eyes wide and unblinking as she carefully stared at the piece of source stone in the adorable little dragon's hand. She watched that slightly brown source stone being peeled apart piece by piece, slowly revealing the crystal stone within. Yellow? Su Luo couldn't believe it. She snatched it with one hand and studied it carefully, confirming that it really was a yellow-ranked crystal stone. Although yellow-ranked was pretty good, it was useless to Nangong Luyun. Su Luo depressingly threw the yellow-colored crystal stone aside. After looking around for quite a while, she picked a striped, grayish-colored source stone. She solemnly handed it over to the adorable little dragon. Come, good boy, put a little bit of effort into your little paws. Peel out a green-ranked crystal stone. Su Luo coaxed little Ming Ming. Whether or not a green one would come out would all depend on those cute little paws. Poor little Ming Ming was unconsciously weighed down with a heavy burden. Little Ming Ming accepted the source stone, suddenly lifting that pair of big, limpid eyes. The depth of his eyes, which were clear as waves with Su Luo's inverted image in them. He bafflingly looked at the source stone, and then looked back again at Su Luo. What is this little kid confused about? Hurry up and peel it. Su Luo patted his head. The adorable little dragon was looking at Su Luo as if she was an idiot. He lowered his head and resolutely began to peel the piece of source stone Su Luo had picked. After it was peeled, with a single look at that color, Su Luo's face immediately fell. Her luck was really bad. It was even worse than the first time. At least the first time she had gotten a yellow-colored crystal stone. This time it wasn't even yellow, but orange. Su Luo rubbed her temples. She was a bit annoyed, but finally, she managed to cheer up. I don't believe my luck can continue to get worse and worse. Come, peel this one. This time, Su Luo did not carefully pick and choose. She directly picked up the nearest source stone. That was about as big as a watermelon. She energetically handed it over to the adorable little dragon. Since it depended on luck, then there was no point in picking carefully. If there was luck, you could even find a good one with closed eyes. If there was no luck, even if you had a piece of purple-colored crystal stone in your hand, it would be swindled by somebody else. Chapter 134. To have come about with no effort, 2. This time the adorable little dragon still used that pair of dark-colored eyes to look at Su Luo. Only this time, the sympathy in his eyes was even more obvious, to the point that even Su Luo could almost see it. The result, when it was peeled, she checked. Su Luo nearly knelt down, almost giving up. What kind of shitty luck did she have today? Her luck was simply disastrous to possess. The results had gotten worse each time. The first time wasn't bad. A yellow-colored crystal stone came out. The second time, she had peeled out an orange-colored crystal stone, and the third time, it turned out to be a red-colored crystal stone. It was such a big piece of red-colored crystal stone, too. She really wanted to cry but lacked the tears. Su Luo thought, if she picked another one, would it end up with nothing inside of it? Su Luo's hands supported her forehead. She sat there looking depressed. She dispirited looked at her pair of hands that had bad luck. The adorable little dragon looked confusedly at his dispirited master, crooked his head, pondered for a bit. He had a feeling that he couldn't help. Consequently, he sat on top of the pile of source stone to obediently play by peeling more stones. That lovable appearance was like a little child playing in must. Just looking at the scene would make anybody's heart soften. Su Luo was in the midst of being depressed, when suddenly, a piece of green thing appeared in front of her. She subconsciously lifted her eyes and looked up, and was surprised to see a piece of green-colored crystal stone. Moreover, it even turned out to be as big as a fist in size. Su Luo looked blankly at that piece of green-colored crystal stone. Then following the stone, she looked up. She saw a pair of furry little paws, and further up was the adorable little dragon's cute little face. Okay, Su Luo felt jealous. Why was it that when she had spent so long picking stones, she couldn't even get a single green-colored crystal stone? However, the adorable little dragon soon after would grab one, and how come it was even such a big piece? It really made people feel jealous, don't you think so? But just being able to find it was great. Su Luo excitedly rubbed the adorable little dragon's head. Her mood immediately lifted like the clear skies after the rain. Quick, help Master find a few more pieces of these. Su Luo felt that her luck was terrible, so she would just not use her own hands. She let the adorable little dragon to directly pick and choose. Making her happy, but also a little depressed, was that the adorable little dragon's luck was simply too good. Good luck couldn't even be used to describe it. He was simply bursting with luck. The first piece, when peeled out, was a green-colored crystal stone. The second piece, when peeled out, was a green-colored crystal stone. The third piece, when peeled out, was another green-colored crystal stone. This, what kind of luck was this? Su Luo was excited that her cheeks were streaming with tears. Both eyes were red. Suddenly, Su Luo's mind flashed with an idea. She realized that previously, she had missed something. Previously, when the adorable little dragon was looking at her with his clear, watery eyes, they were full of sympathy. He was full of sympathy towards her. What could this mean? This meant that even when he picked up the source stone, He had already known if there was a crystal stone inside or not. He could also tell what color the crystal stone inside was, thus he would use that perplexed and sympathetic eyes to look at Su Luo. To have been pitted by this little guy, Su Luo felt like she wanted to cry again. Whether or not this was true, there needed to be proof. However, to prove it was actually really simple. Su Luo smilingly placed the adorable little dragon in front of the pile of source stones, coaxing him, saying, "Good boy. Help Master look for a cyan-colored crystal stones. Okay? Cyan-colored?" The adorable little dragon wrinkled his nose a bit from the difficulty of it, but he still strictly followed the orders of his owner. His pair of petite little paws seemed to contain strength to lift 500 kilograms. Piece by piece, he threw aside the source stones on top, digging straight to the bottom of the pile. Finally, he accurately grabbed a small, fist-sized source stone and handed it to Su Luo. "Inside this is a cyan-colored crystal stone?" Su Luo half believed and half doubtful while pondering about this piece of source stone. Chapter 135. To have come about with no effort. 3. The adorable little dragon's articulation wasn't too clear, but he nodded firmly. He still couldn't speak, so he could only use this way to communicate. "Fine. Then let's peel it to find out." Su Luo handed the source stone back to him. The adorable little dragon obediently took it. He quickly stripped down the source stone. In a showing-off manner, he handed the crystal stone inside to Su Luo. He had a cute look that was clearly seeking praise. His little tail was cocked up high, continuously running around Su Luo. Cyan color. To think it was actually cyan-colored. Su Luo looked at the hazy, fluorescently glowing cyan-colored stone in her hand. She was both happy and astonished, which was then followed by excitement. She was as happy as could be. Apothecary Long had said, only 10 cyan-colored crystal stones were needed to heal Nangong Liyun's wounds. She was as astonished as could be that the adorable little dragon could see through the surface to the inside of the stones. She was excited as could be because she could go source stone gambling, using the lowest prices to bet, and won all the ones with crystal stones in them. However, currently the most important thing was to save Nangong Liyun. So, based on her unlucky little black hands, Su Luo wouldn't even dare to touch those source stones. She let the adorable little dragon to peel all of the source stones. After all, his speed was even faster than a cutting tool. Not using him was a waste. Also, though she did not know what the adorable little dragon's claws were made of, they were probably made of the same material as his teeth. So, as they say, dragons had a natural advantage. Although on the outside he was a little puppy, his teeth and claws were far stronger than that of humans. Just when Su Luo was indulging in flights of fancy, the adorable little dragon had already peeled all of the source stones. Since this group of source stones came from Elder Zihua's cave, therefore the probability of source stones having crystal stones were extremely high. There were approximately 30 stones, apart from those eaten by the adorable little dragon as snacks in the beginning, and those touched by Su Luo's darkly unlucky hands. The rest all had crystal stones. Moreover, the worst were yellow-colored crystal stones. Among them, there were 10 yellow-colored crystal stones, 5 green-colored crystal stones, and there were even 3 cyan-colored crystal stones. Finally, and unexpectedly, even a blue-colored crystal stone was peeled out. This probability was simply going against the heavens. This was calculated according to 5 times the original green-colored crystal stone conversion given by Apothecary Long. 1 piece of blue-colored crystal stone was equal to 25 pieces of green-colored crystal stones. 1 piece of cyan-colored crystal stone was equivalent to 5 pieces of green-colored crystal stones. Therefore, in Su Luo's hands, she had 25 plus 15, and adding another 5 pieces, giving a grand total of 45 pieces of green-colored crystal stones. Before, Ling Feng had carried back a lot of source stones, saying they were the ones with the highest probability from the mines. However, from so many source stones, not even a single piece of green-colored crystal stone was found. But her own source stones, which numbered at a few dozen, would contain so many crystal stones. Su Luo had a strong suspicion that Elder Zihua from that time may have had the same skills as the adorable little dragon. He was probably also able to see through source stones and the situation within at a glance. Otherwise, there was simply no other way to explain the high probability of such a large number of high-grade crystal stones appearing in these source stones. However, it was fortunate that, at that time, she had tossed these stones into her space. Otherwise, she wouldn't know what ought to be done about Nangong Liuyun's injury. After Su Luo appeased the adorable little dragon, she left her space. She arrived at the practice area. This place, before, was indeed a practice area. However, now, it was a place for cutting source stones. The mood at the site was full of enthusiasm. Everybody was in the midst of enthusiastically cutting source stones. Even Steward Su was also personally cutting stones, but his luck clearly wasn't very good. Su Luo saw him cut open 3 to 4 stones and found them to be completely empty. Not even a sliver of crystal stone could be seen. When Steward Su saw Su Luo came over, he inevitably let out a groan and said, "This entire afternoon, although a few crystal stones have been found, not a sliver from the side of a green-colored crystal stone could be seen. Ling Feng has become so anxious that he is about to go mad." Not even one was found? Su Luo was so astonished that her eyes opened wide. This entire afternoon, gold coins had been used like running water spilling out, but to actually not find a single green-colored crystal stone? Was it because Ling Feng's luck was too terrible, or that green-colored crystal stones were truly difficult to find in this world? Chapter 136. To have come about with no effort. 4. No green-colored crystal stones had been cut out from the source stones. However, news had come from the Mercenary Union, and Ling Feng spent 200,000 gold coins to buy 2 pieces of green-colored crystal stones. He looked at the merely 5 pieces of green-colored crystal stones in his hand, and he was angry enough to be driven mad. He impatiently paced around in the room. He had spared no expense and used all the manpower and physical resources, and yet he had barely managed to obtain 5 pieces. Apothecary Long had demanded 50 pieces. How could this be enough? It was not enough to even scratch the surface of what was required. Su Luo saw Ling Feng's appearance, which seemed as though he was about to fall apart. She squeezed her fist tightly, wanting to walk up to him, but finally had to stop her footsteps. Passing through the fragments of wasted stone scraps on the ground, she deeply understood the value represented by these crystal stones. Even having a few pieces was comparable to having a mountain of gold and silver. Yet, by what means could she take out the crystal stones smoothly without making herself look suspicious? This was a difficult problem. Suddenly, a bulb lighted up in her head. Hadn't Ling Feng given in request at the Mercenary Union? Couldn't she just drop off the crystal stones at the Mercenary Union? At that time, she would receive a huge amount of gold coins. However, upon closer scrutiny, she could not do it. Without even first considering the consequences of the Mercenary Union leaking her identity, just thinking of those several tens of millions of gold coins, she had no way to transport it all away. Although she had her space, it also wasn't omnipotent. Right now, it was already practically filled to the brim and would be unable to fit all those gold coins. Then, how could she give these crystal stones to Ling Feng? Su Luo somewhat anxiously wandered around the courtyard, holding little Ming Ming in her arms. Others were worried about not finding crystal stones, while she was worried about having too many crystal stones. If others were to find out, they would be so infuriated to the point of spitting out blood. Su Luo thought about it, and in the end, she still couldn't find an absolutely safe plan. She might as well just straightforwardly throw it out there, since a broken jar wasn't worth smashing anyway. She stuffed the crystal stones into a cotton sack, handed it all over to Ling Feng, who was so worried that both of his eyes were red, and said, "Here, take it." "What?" Ling Feng's forehead nodded. With an annoyed look, he said, "Why are you giving me a bag? The high and mighty Miss Su, I don't have time to play with you right now." Saying this, Ling Feng tossed the bag back to her. His actions were rough and rude. Frightening. He had issued a task to buy each green-colored crystal stone for 100,000 gold coins, and now, he actually threw the entire bag of stones out? Su Luo was dumbfounded. She looked up, down, left and right at this dumbass. She seriously asked, "You really don't want it? Stop messing around. If you have time to go stroll around the mercenary union, maybe like a blind cat, you can also run into a dead mouse and purchase a green-colored crystal stone." Ling Feng impatiently waved his hand with a manner that told her move to the aside. Ling Feng, Ling Feng, how did your master raise such a blockhead like you? You don't want the ones delivered to your door, but insist on taking huge amount of money from your pocket to buy it? This miss really didn't want to make a profit from your master His Highness money, but it honestly was that this child didn't know how to appreciate my kindness. Su Luo secretly thought. Mercenary Union? Oh right. Is the assignment you issued for purchasing green-colored crystal stones still count? The assignment for purchasing one green-colored crystal stone for 100,000 gold coins. Su Luo again verified with him. To not make use of convenient advantages was the action of a damn idiot, Nangong Luyun. You could only blame yourself for raising such an idiotic subordinate. Naturally, it absolutely counts. If you can hand over a green-colored crystal stone, then I will absolutely offer up the gold coins with both hands. Ling Feng disdainfully swept Su Luo a glance. Can you take out even one? If you can, then I, Ling Feng, will from now on work really hard as your slave. Since it was getting late and a single green-colored crystal stone still couldn't be found, therefore, Ling Feng's natural ice-cold temperament had now appeared to be very irritable. Taking Ling Feng, whose strength was of the 6th rank, as a slave? What a great idea. How was her brain constructed? She had actually said that these crystal stones were worn-out stones. What? Aren't they worn-out stones? Su Luo's smile was very infuriating. It was the very model of someone having taken convenient advantage and flaunting it. Do you know, by adding together all the crystal stones in here, it is enough to buy an entire city. Ling Feng reproached her loudly. Do you know, His Highness, in order to obtain one blue-colored crystal stone, how much had he spent on manpower and physical resources, and yet he still couldn't get one. You can actually say that it is a worn-out stone. Do you know, just this one blue-colored crystal stone is sufficient to cause a lot of sects to fight over it? Do you know? Stop. Su Luo made a stop hand gesture. I don't know anything, but I only know one thing. If you continue to yell loudly, then you won't be able to safeguard these crystal stones. Immediately, Ling Feng's excitement came to a grinding halt. He inhaled deeply. He controlled his excessively excited mood. Afterwards, with trembling hands, he counted one by one the crystal stones in the bag. He counted no less than 10 times before finally confirming. One piece of blue crystal stone is equivalent to 25 pieces of green-colored crystal stone. 3 cyan-colored crystal stone is equivalent to 15 green-colored crystal stones. Moreover, there was an additional 5 pieces of green-colored crystal stones. Chapter 138. To have come about with no effort. 6. This was too much of a coincidence, right? Adding in the 5 pieces that he had spent an enormous sum to buy, how did it come out to be exactly 50 green-colored crystal stones? Just at this moment, Steward Su hurriedly walked over. His face had a rarely seen smiling expression, and he excitedly said to Ling Feng, "Good news. Extremely good news. The Mercenary Union has passed along some information saying that there is a client with quite a few green-colored crystal stones in his hands. However, he wants you to double the original price before selling. Even this is good news?" Su Luo stroked little Ming Ming's soft white fur and laughed lightly. If it can save His Highness, then gold coins are not a problem. Steward Su had become beyond worried due to having found 0 green-colored crystal stones even after cutting all afternoon. Now, he wished that he could exchange mountains of gold and silver for green-colored crystal stones. A look of disgust flashed across Ling Feng's eyes. Before, they would not sell a single one. But now, they have even started to try to raise the price? Steward Su, go and remove that announcement." This, Steward Su became agitated. "Be at ease. We have found the required number of green-colored crystal stones," Su Luo said with a smile. As for where she had obtained them, Ling Feng didn't dare to interrogate her. At most, they could just wait for Nangong Luyun to wake up and explain it to him, and then let him deal with it. Inside the room, when Apothecary Long saw that huge sack of crystal stones, he couldn't stop being fearful for a long time. The moment he saw that crystal stone shining with a deep blue radiance, his pair of eyes was almost sucked into the eye sockets. For a very long time, his pupils couldn't come out. The always cool-headed Apothecary Long, the aloof and remote Apothecary Long, like Ling Feng, also started to stammer. Is it really a blue-colored crystal stone? In his life, he had only gotten to glance at it for a short time, since it was always in others' hands. He didn't even have the qualifications to touch it. For a moment, he felt moved, then excitement followed. He felt that this trip was truly worth it. That blue-colored crystal stone radiated a rich, pure spirit air that permeated throughout the room. It made him feel as if his spirit had been cleansed. Ah, a blue-colored crystal stone. How could this be possible? In spite of everything, they had really been able to collect so many crystal stones within the short period of one day. Moreover, it also contained a blue-colored crystal stone, which was extremely rare and coveted by people everywhere. This was truly inconceivable. At this moment, Apothecary Long had surmised that His Highness Prince Jean had an unimaginable amount of mysterious manpower and resources. Su Luo saw that Apothecary Long's eyes were so mesmerized by the blue-colored crystal stone, so much so that they couldn't leave it. She curiously asked, "Apothecary Long, can a blue-colored crystal stone replace green-colored crystal stones? There won't be any problems, right?" "There are problems. Of course there are problems." His train of thought was interrupted. If it was switched to the normal Apothecary Long, he would have started yelling at her a lot earlier. Right now, he wouldn't even dare to breathe loudly, afraid of profaning that pure, blue-colored crystal stone. What kind of problem? Su Luo and Ling Feng both became anxious. Of course there are problems. Putting such a good piece of blue-colored crystal stone in, at that time, the resulting refined medicinal pill will have double the effectiveness. Apothecary Long chuckled while stroking his few strands of his goatee. He was laughing and was very pleased with himself. Throughout this old man's entire life, I have never received such great material. This time, I will be able to refine a pill that will be unrivaled. This old guy's talk really made people's heart jump in alarm. But at the same time, both Su Luo and Ling Feng let out a breath of relief. It looked like Nangong Luyun could be saved, right? Then, why aren't you leaving to quickly refine it now? Su Luo urged without delay. The earlier Nangong Luyun could be saved, the quicker her feeling of guilt would be eliminated. Good, good, good. This old man will go now. Will go now. Apothecary Long's mood could not be described by only the one word for good. The pill refined from this process, aside from helping His Highness Prince Jean, it also had great benefits to himself. Chapter 139, Dark Mist 1. He had been trapped at the advanced apothecary level for many years because he lacked the chance. Now, the opportunity for advancement had come out of nowhere. How could he let it go? Even if Su Luo forbade him from refining the pill, he would yell and cry until she allowed him to refine it. When Su Luo saw Apothecary Long's unconstrained, excited mood, she very slyly and cunningly opened her mouth to say, "Wait." Although Apothecary Long turned his head around, he had a death grip on the sack of crystal stones and stood in a posture as if trying to prevent Su Luo from running over and snatching the sack away. Su Luo secretly laughed and sighed. "I wasn't worried that you wouldn't cherish it. I was just afraid that you wouldn't know its value. If an elder such as yourself doesn't like it, then what could I use as a bargaining chip to negotiate conditions with?" Su Luo pretended to take back the sack by reaching for it, But Apothecary Lung's speed was surprisingly fast. She had no idea what mysterious steps he used as he slipped away through the side. Su Luo wasn't even able to catch a corner of his clothing. Apothecary Lung, those are my crystal stones. Su Luo shouted, feigning anger. Her facial expression looked very pained. What do you want? Apothecary Lung subconsciously blurted out. He hadn't realized that just by asking, he had revealed his desperation. How could someone who spent years peacefully refining medicine be Su Luo's opponent? He saw Su Luo slowly throw him a glance. Her hands holding little Meng Meng unhurriedly caressed the puppy's fur. She slowly and serenely said, I suddenly changed my mind. I want to keep that piece of blue-colored crystal stone. No way. Apothecary Lung unhesitantly and absolutely refused. I can't return the blue-colored crystal stone to you. Why? Those stones were mine to begin with. Besides, I have other uses for it. Su Luo acted as if she was troubled. This piece of blue-colored crystal stone will be very useful when I want to level up my cultivation in the future. To have such an opportunity to take advantage, only an idiot would pass it up. Su Luo would never give up such a rare opportunity. The opponent was Apothecary Long Yin, this empire's only third advanced apothecary. If she didn't extort some goods, then in the future, wouldn't she not feel ashamed when saying she had met Apothecary Long? It is possible to stimulate your cultivation by using immortality pills. Whatever immortality pills you need, this old man can exchange with you. No need for exchange. This old man will give it to you directly. Well, what kind of immortality pills do you want? Apothecary Long was worthy of being called single-minded. He directly jumped into Su Luo's trap. Su Luo, while holding the upper hand, did not even think twice before trying to set the price. She looked at Apothecary Long for a while with a, "You are making it difficult for me" expression before slowly saying, "What kind of immortality pills do you think could be equal to this blue-colored crystal stone? What kind of price do you feel is worthy of this blue-colored crystal stone? Such a generous advanced apothecary like yourself won't take advantage of a junior like me, right?" At the side, Ling Feng's mouth twitched. She was truly worthy of being the object of His Highness Prince Jin's infatuation. Su Luo was as two-faced, cunning, and devious as His Highness. Ling Feng really wanted to remind Apothecary Long that the blue-colored crystal stone had been provided for His Highness Prince Jin's benefit. Apothecary Long still had not mentioned his own fees yet. However, Ling Feng didn't understand Apothecary Long as well as Su Luo did. In Apothecary Long's straightforward black and white world, this blue-colored crystal stone could be the deciding factor to help him advance to the next level of elite apothecary. This level of advancement to such a medicine fanatic could not be exchanged for any amount of gold coins or immortality pills. Furthermore, with regards to Apothecary Long, he may not have a lot of other things, but he had an abundance of immortality pills. Apothecary Long thought about it, and very shamefully said, "How about I give you half of all the immortality pills that I have refined?" From Apothecary Long's point of view, he had taken huge advantage of Su Luo. After all, that blue-colored crystal stone from years ago, he had only the qualification to see it from a distance. Now, this piece of blue-colored crystal stone was already in his hands. Chapter 140, Dark Mist 2. Half of all of the pills he refined? Even Su Luo was so shocked that it took a while for her to wake up. The amount presented really was worthy of being offered by Apothecary Long. It was indeed a cost of massive proportions. As expected of a spendthrift. Half. Su Luo was well versed in methods of haggling over the price, so she muttered out half a phrase, not agreeing yet not disagreeing. All the while she still gave her opponent enough space to think. The biggest weakness of people like Apothecary Long, who spend their entire life immersed in research on medicine, were their single-mindedness and impoliteness. An apothecary was the best model for this type of person. He saw Su Luo's hesitation and couldn't help but become worried and hurriedly said, "If half is not enough, then 2/3. The stock of refined immortality pills that this old man has accumulated for many years, 2/3 of it will be given to you. How about it? Such a wealthy and overbearing apothecary Long. This bold, imposing manner and extravagance almost even made Su Luo choke. However, what kind of person was Su Luo? She was a model of treacherous, trying to take advantage of someone while trying to sell an obedient front to others. They only saw her face revealing having an incredibly small, pained expression, half-heartedly and undecidedly looked at Ling Feng, then looked at Apothecary Long as if still unable to make a final decision. Ling Feng immediately turned his face away. He really didn't have the heart to see a person of good moral standing and reputation like Apothecary Long being led by the nose by this little girl. Apothecary Long, with a very serious and deadly earnest expression, stared at Su Luo. Both of his hands had a death grip on the sack with crystal stones, as if saying, "If you dare steal the bag, then I will start yelling at you" expression. Then okay. Since it's Apothecary Long who asked, then of course I will give you face. Then this is thus settled. Su Luo hesitated for a while before agreeing. She would never tell Apothecary Long that she actually wanted to extort knockout drugs, poison, such type of pills. Who knew that Apothecary Long would be so sincere? If she didn't take the opportunity to rip off even more, then she would have felt that she had let down this golden opportunity bestowed by the heavens. If there are convenient advantages that I don't take, then the fury of heavens may split me in half with lightning. At this time, Apothecary Long released a breath of relief and wiped at the non-existent cold sweat on his forehead. Momentarily, he felt that this girl was more difficult to handle than even the most profound immortality pill recipe. Immediately, Apothecary Long wanted to return to his manor and start refining this immortality pill. After 3 days of refining, Apothecary Long personally came over cupping a delicate little embroidered box. At the same time, in his horse carriage there was also a 10-centimeter long wooden box. He handed the wooden box to Su Luo. "This old man's collection for many years are mostly in here. Quickly take it." They had been collected for so many years, and in a moment were given away. Apothecary Long had been somewhat unable to cope with his feelings. However, his expression was very joyful. Could this old man really succeeded in becoming an elite apothecary? Su Luo had asked, and Apothecary Long, with only a few strokes of the whiskers of his goat-like beard, had happily laughed straight away. Su Luo's heart clearly understood. This old man certainly did get promoted, otherwise he wouldn't be so generous. But when she see the inside of that box, "This is what you called 2/3 of your stuff? So little?" Su Luo was somewhat dumbfounded. How come it was so different from what she had imagined? 2/3, ah? Shouldn't it be at least a trunk of stuff? How could it be such a small case? Apothecary Long glared at Su Luo as if looking at an idiot, blew at his beard, scowled and angrily rebuked. "Such a girl. What kind of stuff do you think this old man refines? Do you think it's the 3 types of indiscriminate knockout drugs, poison, and like?" Su Luo suddenly had an urge to cry. Who knew that Apothecary Long would proudly continue to say, "All the things this old man refined were unique secret recipes. Didn't you see those people kneeling in front of this old man's manor door? Even one of the pills in here could make those people scoop out their hearts and hand it to you. You girl who don't even know the good from the bad could even dare to look down on it. But what does she need those hearts for?" Chapter 141. Dark Mist 3. Her home manor was a mess with a bunch of things that needed to be settled. Dealing with so many corrupt and sinister people, she needed those indiscriminate knockout drugs, poisons, and aphrodisiacs for self-protection. If you don't want these immortality pills, then what do you want? Apothecary Long was very confused. All the people he had come across longed for these immortality pills until they almost went insane. Su Luo simply and honestly told him the truth regarding what she really needed. The result was that Apothecary Long became infuriated. He widened his eyes and glared. With an attitude of wanting to eat her and panting with rage, he said, "How could this old man refine those? Only elementary apothecaries would refine such dirty, indiscriminate types of pills. How could you look down on this old man so much? Do you know that every single immortality pill in this box could be exchanged for a carriage full of the pills you want? Facing Apothecary Long's "you don't know crap" expression, Su Luo felt deeply inferior. It turned out that a single immortality pill in the box could be exchanged for an entire carriage of knockout drugs. She really didn't know anything at all. Apothecary Long snorted, tossed his sleeves, and entered the room. Su Luo found a deserted corner and prudently placed that small box of immortality pills into her space. Apothecary Long's products must be extraordinary goods. Before she could progress to the advanced apothecary stage, this small box of immortality pills will be very useful to her. Within the chamber, Nangong Luyun quietly laid on the bed. Even though he was unconscious, his expression was still stern and gloomy due to the pain. Both of his hands were tightly clenched into fists with blue veins bursting out as Nangong Luyun was using a lot of strength to hold on. His face emitted a bloodthirsty and murderous air. "Make him swallow this bottle of medicine," Apothecary Long said after inspecting Nangong Luyun's injuries, nodding his head towards Su Luo. Under Apothecary Long's directions, Su Luo helped Nangong Luyun to sit up. She leaned his ice-cold and stiff body onto hers and with great difficulty fed the bottle of black medicine into his mouth. When the medicine first entered, Nangong Luyun had no particular reaction. After about an hour, the medicine started to take effect on Nangong Luyun's body. "Open up his clothing," Apothecary Long loudly instructed. Su Luo untied Nangong Luyun's purple-colored belt. His breathing had become shallow and hurried. His porcelain white as jade chest rapidly rose and fell, giving off a 100% wild and sexy appearance. This made Su Luo, who was looking on scorching hot, and she swallowed mouthful after mouthful of saliva. Su Luo gave Apothecary Long a puzzled look. Apothecary Long nodded his head and said, "His Highness Prince Jin's exceptionally good natural aptitude is truly worthy of praise. Even in the unconscious state, he could advance to the 7th rank based on the circulation of his meridians." He advanced to the 7th rank this way? Su Luo's pair of beautiful eyes moved around. An inconceivable shock flashed through their depths. Suddenly, Apothecary Long bleakly said, "Not good." Chapter 142, Dark Mist, 4. Su Luo looked nervously at Nangong Luyun. She only saw his originally white as jade skin had black-colored mist rising out of all his pores. This dark mist became increasingly dense, and it almost completely shrouded his entire body. At the same time, Apothecary Long's expression now had a sudden, huge change. In an instant, a brilliant light soared, tearing apart that dark mist. The entire sky was filled with shooting star-like lights that fell down. They circled around Nangong Luyun's body and then spread out in all 4 directions. The ground violently shook, like the violent, bellowing rage of an ancient beast that came from underground. It was as if something had awoken. Brilliant lights soared, launching in all directions, and bringing along a dark force bent on destruction, as if it could devour everything in its path. Apothecary Long, who was closest to Nangong Luyun, was shaken until he collapsed and immediately lost consciousness. There was nowhere for Su Luo to run. At this critical moment, a burst of sharp dragon cry came from the adorable little dragon's mouth. A golden ray of light covered Su Luo, helping her avoid this dangerous attack. But the people outside were not as lucky. Wherever the brilliant light passed, wretched and miserable cries could be heard. Immediately, blood rained everywhere, with more swirling in the air. The blood mist continued to spread, dropping off slices of dismembered body parts. In a moment, a dark force that could destroy the heavens and wipe out the earth caused a period of violent quakes that shook the earth and mountains. In a flash, the entire manor was almost shaken into ruins. People could only hear the sounds of houses crashing down, like the autumn leaves drifting in the rain and wind, tottering on the verge of collapse. And soon, these structures that were being shaken were completely razed to the ground. The entire manor seemed as if an aircraft bomber had devastated it, thoroughly destroying everything. It was an area that withered away until it became dust. Almost everyone in the manor was shaken until they became unconscious. However, at this moment, Nangong Liuyun's body rose and sat in the lotus position. His face was like autumn, bright as the stars, both hands intertwined in front of his chest, making strange hand gestures. Su Luo rubbed her eyes, thinking that she must be seeing things. In all directions, everything was in ruins. However, in the middle of the ruins, Nangong Luyun sat in the lotus position. His entire body was shrouded in a mysterious, dark mist, unfathomable and strange. At the same time, there was also an air of a king lording over the entire world that made people revere, kneel, and worship. And then, an even more incredible and unbelievable thing. Behind his back, a mysterious shadow appeared. It resembled a dragon but was not a dragon. It resembled a phoenix but was not a phoenix. It was terrible, frightening, and strange. It had a kind of domineering aggressiveness that was formidable enough to destroy the sky and wipe out the earth, with a look of disdain that lorded over the world. What was that thing? How could it appear on Nangong Liuyun's back as a shadow? What did those 50 green-colored crystal stones trigger in Nangong Liuyun? Nangong Liuyun's bloodline. Was he really just a simple prince of this empire? Su Luo's gaze was deep. She unblinkingly stared at Nangong Liuyun's solemn expression. That handsome, outstanding, and mysterious appearance. Her heart and thoughts were in complete chaos, full of questions. At the same time, the dark forest, sinking sunset peak, on a hilltop. An elderly person of indeterminate age, with white eyebrows and hair, sat cross-legged. He was in the midst of cultivating, and perhaps because a long time had passed, his body was covered in a thick layer of dust. He suddenly opened his eyes. They were clear and shone brightly. He then looked towards a place in the east. He looked for a long, long time. Finally, his brows wrinkled, and he muttered to himself, "A prophecy from 1,000 years ago. Could it possibly be true? Darkness and chaos. The heavenly laws are hard to fathom. Even this old man can't see it clearly, alas." Ultimately, he just sighed and did nothing. He merely closed his eyes tightly and entered into a state of cultivation, as if he had never woken up, never said a single word. Chapter 143. His Highness Prince Jin 1. At this moment, Nangong Luyun was tottering as if he was about to fall to the ground. Before Su Luo could react, there was already a figure flying as fast as lightning towards Nangong Luyun. He caught Nangong Liuyun's limp body that was about to fall to the ground. "Your Highness!" Ling Feng anxiously yelled out loud. At the same time, he exasperatedly roared at Su Luo. "How could you just stand there and watch as His Highness fell to the ground and not help him?" A faint feeling of guilt bubbled forth from Su Luo's heart. Because Nangong Luyun was very close to her, all Su Luo had to do was reach out, and she would have been able to support him. However, she had been distracted and did not notice him falling. Nangong Liuyun's demonic charming beauty was at its peak. This made him seem almost gentle and reserved. After pushing the responsibility of holding Nangong Luyun to Su Luo, Ling Feng rushed away. He very quickly and forcefully pulled Apothecary Long by the shoulder and dragged him over. Ling Feng shoved Apothecary Long right in front of Nangong Luyun. "Quickly check on His Highness." Apothecary Long was still dizzy from being hit by that assortment of brilliant rays of light. He didn't even have a chance to nap before being shaken awake by Ling Feng. Ling Feng did not even give Apothecary Long time to fully wake up before dragging him over. At this moment, Apothecary Long's face was bruised and there was bloodstain on his forehead. It was quite clear he had been injured by the falling building debris. However, Ling Feng did not give him any time to breathe or recover before pulling him towards Nangong Luyun. Quickly check over His Highness." Apothecary Long grudgingly glared at him, like a scholar encountering a soldier. Even if what he wanted to say was justified, Ling Feng would not be able to comprehend. This type of military personnel only knew how to speak with brute force. Although Apothecary Long was very arrogant, in front of an expert martial artist like Ling Feng, he could not be haughty or arrogant. What's more, Apothecary Long was also curious about what kind of profound mystery happened on His Highness Prince Jin's body. How could his body be surrounded by a black-colored mist? Moreover, how had Prince Jin advanced to the 7th rank? He had never heard of anyone that could release such a formidable stream of aura, or of anyone who could successfully shake all the buildings near his body into fine powder. When Apothecary Long checked Nangong Liuyun's pulse, his eyebrows rose slightly. He had a puzzled expression on his face. How is he? Seeing that Apothecary Long had finally finished checking Nangong Liuyun, Ling Feng asked with a nervous expression. He unblinkingly stared at Apothecary Long, afraid of missing any change of expression on his face. Strange, alas, very strange. Apothecary Long stroked his sparse goat hair-like beard, his face full of bewilderment and incomprehension. It shouldn't be like this. How did it turn out like this? It shouldn't be like this? What did it turn into? Su Luo concisely and comprehensively caught the main point. Apothecary Long frowned and said, "Currently His Highness Prince Jin's entire body is full of power as if it was about to surge out. He should be weak instead." What he didn't say was that High Highness Prince Jin had entered the 7th rank. Moreover, his 7th rank was much stronger than other people's 7th rank. It really was unimaginable for other people. Will there be problems? Ling Feng fiercely glared at Apothecary Long. Right now, there aren't any problems. As for in the future, this old man cannot say. Apothecary Long had a complicated expression as he looked Nangong Liuyun up and down. His pair of eyes were radiant and sparkling as if he wanted to dissect Nangong Liuyun for research. In any case, he could recognize and was aware that the person before his eyes was not just any person, but rather the unrivaled His Highness Prince Jin. So, he could only heave a sigh and suppress this restless way of thinking. He didn't even dare to mention it. Since there were no problems at the moment, then she does not need to worry excessively. Su Luo was relieved and lifted her eyes to Ling Feng. This situation will require you to go and personally handle it. Chapter 144, His Highness Prince Jin, 2. With such a large commotion, how could the senior provincial officer not know? He would definitely dispatch troops over at the fastest speed. Ling Feng looked at the disorderly surroundings. Mutilated corpses were wildly strewn about the place. It was indeed unsuitable for His Highness's recuperation. He nodded and said, "Indeed, considering that His Highness is still very weak at present, there's no need to meet with those outsiders." Ling Feng carefully helped Nangong Liuyun onto the dragon-scaled horse carriage before allowing Su Luo to get on board. Then he personally drove the dragon-scaled horse carriage towards a completely different direction in a rush. His Highness Prince Jin had numerous assets. Even in this city alone, he had no less than 3 estates. After about the length of time needed to burn a stick of incense, the dragon-scaled horse stopped at the entrance of a hot spring villa. Magnificent mountain villa. Built on the hillside, its courtyard was secluded and quiet. Within the mountain villa was a lake. Although very small, it was crystal clear upon viewing. Ivy was sprawled all over its shores, dense and flourishing, appearing very fresh and delightful to the eye. There were rock garden made of piled-up stones which possessed a natural charm. Beside the lake, built near the water, was a loft, actually enshrouded in dense and hazy mist. Nestled between centuries-old trees and obscured by fog, its faintly discernible appearance was fairy-tale-like. Su Luo entered, following behind Ling Feng. The strange thing was, they had encountered not even a single person along the way here. Opening the doors of that hazy loft, what appeared before Su Luo's eyes was an inner chamber as wide as a temple hall. Within the huge inner chamber, mist floated about due to the dense heat. with white ivory screen made from elephant tusk to separate the inside and outside. Walking around to behind the screen, Su Luo was inevitably surprised, secretly praising. Nangong Luyun indeed lived up to his name. Such great expenditure, such extravagant comfort. That nearly 100 square meters bath actually was made from white jade tiles, and it could be seen at a glance that the water came from a hot spring, giving off waves of heat, tempting people to submerge and swim in it. Each of those descending steps were actually made of rare suet white jade. Not any other kind of green or yellow jade, but the really rare suet white jade. Su Luo secretly became speechless. In her previous world, just a small piece of suet white jade was already worth thousands of millions. Yet here, Nangong Luyun had actually used it to tile the stairs and step on it. What kind of feet were his? Really, this was too extravagant. Even the sophisticated Su Luo could not help shaking her head. Ling Feng placed Nangong Luyun beside the hot spring and turned to Su Luo, looking stern before he spoke seriously. It is now up to you to care for His Highness. With that said, he coldly glared at Su Luo and turned to leave. Su Luo was just about to agree when her mind suddenly jolted. Something's not right. If it was anywhere else, it would still be fine. Yet what location was this? Hot springs. A single man and woman sharing a bath. Something was definitely not right. Su Luo loudly shouted at him. Stop where you are, Ling Feng. Just where are you going? In any case, Ling Feng should remain here, should he not? If not... Su Luo glanced at the unconscious and faintly breathing Nangong Luyun. Although his weak breaths made him seem rather harmless, somehow, she still not dared to think of sharing the same room with him. Ling Feng paused and glanced at Nangong Luyun with a complicated expression. Yet, when he turned his gaze to Su Luo, his icy tone allowed no refusal as he aggressively asked, "The fourth Miss Su, may I ask if the reason why His Highness went to Sunset Mountains, was it not for you?" Su Luo could not help but admit that it was true. Was it not for you that His Highness forcefully stopped his recovery, thus making his injury even more serious? Ling Feng spoke in a browbeat manner. Chapter 145, His Highness Prince Jin, 3. Su Luo was unable to refute this. Clearly it was a fact. His Highness' original injury was under control and would have remained so. Wasn't it you who punched him until he spat out blood? Ling Feng step by step closed in on Su Luo, as if itching to swallow her. The veins on Su Luo's forehead was throbbing. It was in fact this way, however. Just now when His Highness was about to fall, the person closest to his side was you, the fourth Miss Su. Wasn't it you, who didn't even try to help His Highness a little? Ling Feng aggressively stated. Su Luo's heart was about to yell out she had been wronged, but she choked it down. It was not because she didn't want to help, but she was distracted by the shadow behind Nangong Luyun's back. Okay? How come after listening to Ling Feng's complaints, even she herself felt that she was loathsome and deserved to be thrown into the 18 layers of hell? Why had Nangong Luyun become the model for the lofty figure of heroism who had sacrificed himself for others? Just when Su Luo appeared to be twisted up in confusion, Ling Feng had a sympathetic gaze as he glanced at her. He also silently looked at his master, His Highness, who was pretending to appear weak and harmless. The corner of his mouth moved silently and calmly turned around to leave. He also very kindly closed the thick black iron door while passing. Seeing the black iron door was about to close, Su Luo suddenly felt like crying but lacked the tears. This is just great, such a huge palace, with curtains flying, gorgeous, extravagant white jade. Hot spring bath the size of a pond. The water from the pond-size bath shone clear and crystalline, such that you could see the bottom. A dense, hot steam floated vaguely around as if extending everywhere within the air. Su Luo hesitantly stood in her original spot, unable to turn around yet. All of a sudden, Su Luo heard a heavy-weighted object falling into the water. She immediately turned around and could not find Nangong Liuyun's figure. She only saw the surface of the hot spring water continuously bursting with bubbles while the water ripples reflected the sunlight. It couldn't be. Su Luo hastily rushed to the place where Nangong Liyun was located. The pool of water was crystal clear, so Su Luo immediately saw the apparently sleeping Nangong Liyun sinking to the bottom. Had he rolled into the hot spring water? Su Luo didn't even think. She stripped off her outerwear and gracefully dove into the beautiful hot spring water, striving to swim to where Nangong Liyun was. Very quickly she found him. Su Luo wanted to drag Nangong Liyun out of the water. When did Nangong Liyun become so heavy? Su Luo inwardly grumbled bitterly in her heart. She sank underwater while trying to tow Nangong Liyun, but unfortunately she discovered that now his weight exceeded 500 kilograms. No matter how she exerted her strength, she could not move him the slightest. Furthermore, making her heart even more alarmed was that he held his breath underwater until his complexion turned purplish, as if any moment he would suffocate to death. This man, he was fine, but how did he just roll into here? Su Luo gave a depressed sigh in her heart. Today, how come so many strange things have happened? First was the weird shadow that appeared behind Nangong Liyun. Next, such a fine manner was destroyed successfully, becoming pieces of trash. Finally, his body suddenly seemed to weigh 500 kilograms. It really was a strange day. Su Luo felt that she really should find some time to go to the temple and pray. But in front of her eyes, how could she watch helplessly as Nangong Liyun suffocate to death? Although Su Luo was almost suffocating from holding her breath, after some quick thought, she finally closed her eyes and very fiercely took the initiative to deliver her sweet lips to help pass some much-needed air to Nangong Liyun. At the bottom of the crystalline hot spring, on the white jade that was used as tiling, there was a pair of immortal-looking beautiful man and woman whose lips were locked lovingly and inseparably. The close-eyed Su Luo didn't notice. Nangong Liyun, who was close at hand, had raised his eyebrows. An amused and interested smile flashed across his face. He had clearly regained consciousness a long time ago. He clearly fell into the hot spring pool on purpose. He obviously calculated that Su Luo would try to save him. But Su Luo does not know. Right now she was silently cursing him while passing air to him through the lips. Chapter 146, High Highness Prince Jin, 4. After Su Luo had satisfactorily passed enough air to Nangong Liyun and was about to leave, in a split second, his passive body unexpectedly moved. He seized both of her lips. His nimble and hot tongue entered her mouth to besiege and plunder. The surging passion burst into flames as their lips and tongues connected. Nangong Liyun drunkenly kissed her, his large hands sliding down to loosen Su Luo's belt. He caressed her skin that was smooth as silk and white as snow. Both of Su Luo's lips were plump, enticing him to intensely suck on them even more. Her body had become weak and boneless, completely lacking any strength to resist. Suddenly, Su Luo felt something was not quite right and immediately regained her senses. Nangong Liyun. He was actually not unconscious. It was only now that Su Luo realized she had been played by this man. She had been so concerned about him that in order to save his life, she had taken the initiative to give him air to breathe. However, he had actually used her concern to deceive her. Really, her efforts had been eaten by a dog. Good intentions had not received good compensation. It was like a dog biting the hand that fed it. Su Luo furiously pushed Nangong Liyun away, panting with rage as she swam to the surface. She was so angry that she walked directly towards the shore. At the bottom of the pool, Nangong Liyun let out a sigh. His Luo girl was truly not easy to deceive. Luo girl. Nangong Liyun surfaced from the water, calling out to stop the raging Su Luo from leaving. His voice was like the sound of nature, charming and deep, with a touch of frustration. Su Luo's figure stopped for a split second, but then continued to leave with large strides. Just like this, you think you can escape this king? Nangong Liuyun's voice had a touch of self-mockery and sorrow at being abandoned. Su Luo's figure stopped, giving him only a view of her indifferent back. Nangong Liyun had obviously played a trick on her. Why was he making it seem as if she was the loathsome and unpardonable party? Be good, come here. Seeing her pause, Nangong Liyun's mood improved. He shallowly smiled and beckoned to her with his hand. However, Su Luo merely gave a cold hump while still stubbornly presenting her back to him. Nangong Liyun saw that he was failing to convince Su Luo to return, so he changed his tone of voice. Nangong Liyun's voice became demonically charming and deep with sadness as he dejectedly said, "This king felt that he had slept for quite a while. I thought that I will never wake up again. I also thought that I would never see Luo girl again. Don't you want to see this king's appearance after successfully waking up?" His tone was miserable and wretched, like a little puppy that had been discarded by his owner begging for a trace of pity from his master. Su Luo was immediately infuriated to the point that she wanted to laugh. "Please, you are the legendary His Highness Prince Jean who looked disdainfully down at the world, okay? A grand majestic 7th-ranked expert, okay? How could you act so weak and beseech someone like me? How could you act so cute and shameless towards me?" But damn it, when she had heard that sentence of never waking up, Su Luo felt pain squeezing the deepest part of her heart for a while. Su Luo recalled these past few days when she had been by Nangong Liyun's side taking care of him, how she had felt apprehensive and alarmed because of him. She had also felt ashamed and remorseful. Su Luo had repeatedly blamed herself for that punch. She suddenly felt the rims of her eyes begin to ache and experienced a kind of unprecedented feeling of being wronged. How could he tease her like this? However, how could Su Luo, who habitually concealed her feelings in the depths of darkness, show her weakness in front of others? After settling her emotions, Su Luo unhurriedly turned around and displayed a tranquil expression that did not contain a single ripple. She step by step approached Nangong Liyun, finally crouching down by his side. The corner of her mouth lifted into a taunting and sarcastic smile. His Highness Prince Jean seems to have such peculiar interests, like using one's own life to play jokes. It's a lot of fun, isn't it? Her laugh was very dark and terribly sinister. Chapter 147. His Highness Prince Jean, 5. Nangong Liyun pretended that he had been wronged. "If I didn't use these tactics, then how could I get Luo girl to notice this king?" Su Luo gritted her teeth, itching to skin him alive. "When did you regain consciousness? She should have realized it earlier. Why else would Ling Feng have become so talkative all of a sudden, forcing her to stay behind to take care of Nangong Liyun? If he didn't have Nangong Liyun's order, how could he dare?" Nangong Liyun knew he could not fool such a clever girl, so he tried to change the topic. "Extremely smart girls are not cute. Luo girl, help this king take a bath, okay? When have you ever seen this miss being cute?" Su Luo coldly smiled. Act cute? Help him bathe? Did he want her to take a knife to scrub him with during his bath? It's amazing that he had the gall to say this. Sure enough, he had already regained consciousness in that ruined manner. He deliberately pretended to be weak to deceive her. "You are even more cute like this." Immediately after he finished speaking, Nangong Liyun's abruptly closed his hand. In the next moment, the steps that Su Luo had been standing on disintegrated. She didn't even have time to evade when her entire body suddenly flew backwards. Su Luo fell into the hot spring pool with a loud splashing sound. By some strange coincidence, both of her legs ended up wrapped around Nangong Liyun's waist with their eyes facing each other. With such a posture and such an environment, if others were to enter, how could their imagination not run wild? Sharp-mouthed and soft-hearted girl, look around. Your body doesn't lie. It already threw itself at this king. The corner of Nangong Liyun's mouth turned up into a demonic and flattering smile that was extremely hateful. This Nangong Liyun. Su Luo gritted her teeth. She felt that being together with this man, if there was a day she was not infuriated with him, then that meant she had already died from being mad at him. In short, she would eventually die from being continuously angered by him. Nangong Liuyun's enchanting face was rosy and shone like gems from being steamed by the water. With a demonically charming smile, he said, "Obedient Luo Luo, what are you mad about? Could it be that what this king said is wrong? Release me." Su Luo clenched her teeth to calm down her emotions and indifferently opened her mouth to speak. "It was you who threw yourself into my arms and refused to let go." Nangong Luyun hoisted his chin and said this with a straight face. Instead of releasing Su Luo, his hold on her became even tighter. Su Luo grabbed a snow-white ice-cold dagger from her space. She pressed the dagger against his ivory-white chest, coldly smiled, and said, "Keep your hands to yourself, okay? Then it's okay for this king to use his mouth, right?" Nangong Luyun blinked his beautiful eyes innocently at her, seeking her approval. From their first meeting when he had set the betting terms with her, a victor would become king and loser had to warm the bed. She knew that Nangong Liuyun's words had a double meaning. He absolutely did not mean he intended to use his mouth to speak. Su Luo's complexion darkened, and she threateningly said, "Don't assume that I wouldn't dare to take action, since this mist can hit you until you spit out blood. I'm not afraid to use this to kill you." God knows why, Nangong Luyun started to smile. His smile was exceedingly enticing to all living things. That smile on the edge of his lips made his entire body even more enchanting. His smile drew people's gazes to him, making them unable to look away. Nangong Luyun completely ignored that ice-cold dagger at his chest. He extended his slender white hand to pick up Su Luo's ink-black hair that was soaked by the hot water. With a sinister air that had the power to make people tremble, he said, "Adorable Luo girl, this king likes you more and more. What's to be done? From now on, I will never be willing to part with you." Nangong Luyun paid no attention to the sharp dagger pressed against his chest. It was as if he was ignoring the fact that with just a little push, the dagger would thrust into his heart, piercing it like paper. He merely unhurriedly moved his lower body, slowly approaching Su Luo. Both people met face to face, nose to nose and red lips to red lips. They were so close, each could feel the air that the other person was breathing out. An ambiguous atmosphere started to solidify in the air. Chapter 148, His Highness Prince Jean, 6. Release me. A thread of helplessness flashed across Su Luo's heart. Damn it, how could she have forgotten? This man was ruthless towards others, but even more toward himself. Before, when he forced her to use a dagger to pierce himself, it should have been sufficient to illustrate this point. So hateful. She had actually forgotten, and she dared to hold a dagger to threaten him again. Damn it. The corner of Nangong Liuyun's mouth was still lifted into a careless smile. He lowered his head. His distance to Su Luo was decreasing, getting closer and closer. Seeing her vexed expression, he gave a knowing, demonically charming smile. Then once more he seized her breath. Damn it, this guy should just go and die. Right now Su Luo had provided a cage to entrap someone else, but instead she maneuvered around so much while leading the prey that she had ended up trapping herself inside. Could she be so ruthless as to stab him? Clearly she couldn't do it. It had been very difficult for her to save him, so how could she once again injure him? Therefore the dagger in her hand quietly fell to the floor. Nangong Luyun released her. He laughed wantonly with a demonic charm. Out of the corner of his eyes, he saw that dagger sink underwater. When it hit the ground, Nangong Liuyun's mood seemed to have become extremely good. His entire person seemed to be radiating with health and vigor, as if he had obtained his life's greatest desire. It was so great that the atmosphere around him also brightened. He found that he had discovered Su Luo's weakness. His Luo girl was truly cute, really cute. Just at this time, all of a sudden a ruthless, cold expression flashed through Nangong Liuyun's eyes. What Su Luo did not know was right now, outside on top of that 1,000-year-old ancient tree, a sharp feathered arrow was being aimed at her vital point. This was a master whose entire body was shrouded in black cloth, with not even a strand of hair exposed. He was hidden in the tree branches, concealing his figure among the lush leaves, motionless, like a hidden snake waiting for the right time to spray out its poison to kill a person. Suddenly his hand loosened, and the feathered arrow split the sky, bursting out as it was murderously launched towards Su Luo. This arrow, due to it being blocked by the window, had gone completely undetected by Su Luo. Even if she became aware of it, she still couldn't have avoided it with her level of skill. This was because the person who launched the arrow had high martial arts skills, absolutely above the 6th rank, completely not someone Su Luo could stop. Due to Su Luo's instinct that guard against danger, her body slightly trembled. She instinctively wanted to dodge. Just at this moment, Nangong Luyun lowered his head and once again seized her red lips. He wrapped her entire body within his embrace. He protected her by wrapping her so tightly that they were joined seamlessly. Just then, that bright silvery arrow broke through the window and entered, carrying with it the sound of thunder, 5,000 kilograms of force, and a murderous air. If Nangong Luyun hadn't advanced to the 7th rank, then he would either have had to use his body to block this arrow or let Su Luo die. These would have been the only two possible choices. The enemy was forcing Nangong Luyun to choose. Either choose to save his own life or save the woman who was a good-for-nothing. It was clearly obvious that the enemy figured that Nangong Luyun loved himself and his own life the most. It was also evident that the other party wanted Su Luo to look on helplessly and clearly see how cruel Nangong Luyun will treat her by letting her die. The person who launched the arrow had calculated all these details, included all the possible circumstances into this plan. Now the black, masked person's gloomy and cold expression had a cruel smirk, as if victory was in sight. However, the reality made him frown, because he would never have anticipated that in such a short time that even with Nangong Luyun's serious internal injuries, he would advance to the 7th rank. Could only see Nangong Luyun cause the pool of water to stir up like a geyser. The white-colored water changed into a dragon in midair, silently roaring and swallowed that arrow. Swift like the wind, quick like lightning. Moreover, when Nangong Luyun counterattacked, he was unruffled as before, still kissing Su Luo. His figure was as steady as a boulder, with not a bit of tremor. Chapter 149. Secrets Revealed. 1. Therefore, even as murderous intent surrounded them and under circumstances where a moment of carelessness could prove fatal, Su Luo was completely protected within Nangong Luyun's embrace. Confused from the lack of air and with her vision blocked, Su Luo was completely unaware of the truth despite sensing that something was not quite right. It was only after the battle had settled that Nangong Luyun unhurriedly released her. Seeing Su Luo repeatedly inhaling large mouthfuls of air, he smiled with demonic charm. "Do you like this king kissing you?" Su Luo was infuriated to the point that she was speechless. In the end, she just glared at him and picked up her dagger to leave. However, all of a sudden, her figure stood still. When did such a large amount of fine powder accumulate in the hot spring pool? Moreover, it looked like the powder was actually black iron. Additionally, its original shape could be vaguely seen to resemble that of an arrow. Su Luo's line of sight shot towards the window. A finger-sized hole could be seen there. Its notch was smooth and round, not too big or small, and just the right size for an arrow to enter. Su Luo rolled her eyes and fixed them decidedly on Nangong Luyun. She stared at him coldly and solemnly, yet she did not speak a single word. Nangong Luyun stood up from the hot spring pool, completely exposing his slender and youthful body before Su Luo. Conspicuously messy long hair as pitch black as ink draped over his broad shoulders, dripping rivulets of water droplets. Crimson cornelian cherries decorated that refined white porcelain-like chest. Broad shoulders, Narrow buttocks and a pair of straight and slender legs drew a perfect outline, tempting others to sin. He was so captivating that it was almost criminal. His unique and incomparable face bore an enticing smile that could only have been made by heaven, and beautiful, profoundly mysterious eyes as pitch black as an abyss. When these orbs gazed into Su Luo's eyes, they were filled with intense tenderness that was hard to describe. It was completely intoxicating. He caressed her white and porcelain-like face, and with a charmingly deep voice and demonic smile carrying a touch of playfulness, he said, "Are you satisfied with this king's body?" He had changed the subject. The corner of Su Luo's mouth perked up into a shallow smile of distinct meaning and lightly pushed away his hands. "What does it have to do with me?" Nangong Liuyun's expression sunk and became slightly dark. His eyes carried a hint of cold-blooded cruelty. "Luo girl, what are you angry about? This king will give you justice, okay?" Simply hypocritical. A taunting and sarcastically cold laugh flashed through Su Luo's eyes. He clearly knew that the opponent had been aiming for her, but persistently pretended nothing had happened right to her face and tried to mislead her. Did Nangong Luyun think that she was an idiot? Did he really assume that she could not see that the arrow launched through the window had been shot at her? Did he mistakenly deem her as a good-for-nothing that understood nothing? Who was he protecting? Who was he defending? Did he really believe that she knew nothing? Nangong Luyun, right now I won't look into this because I don't have the ability. However, don't you dare go overboard with bullying me. Su Luo did not want to be entangled with this issue. He could protect that person without distinguishing between right and wrong, but he should not assume an adoring manner in front of her to lure her in. Nangong Liuyun's complexion momentarily darkened, and although those eyes contained a callous and stern expression, they could not conceal that passing flash of doting. Why couldn't his Luo girl just be slightly stupid? A little less intelligence would be good. Luo, do you trust me? They were tender and soft words that, though cruel, carried a hard to describe hopefulness. Nangong Luyun stared at Su Luo. His deep and bottomless eyes contained so many words he wanted to say but couldn't. Nangong Luyun knew this proud and independent woman in front of his eyes was strong. She was proud and aloof. She clearly distinguished between love and hate with a non-sentimental cold-bloodedness. She was intelligent, wise, and far-sighted. She had thorough and careful observation skills. Her pair of eyes shone too brightly, as if she could see through to a person's heart. All secrets in front of her would be exposed. Su Luo looked at Nangong Luyun. His pair of bright eyes revealed too much information, almost too much for her to bear. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.